Ladies and gents, boys and girls, happy Tuesday, June the 6th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. I see Austin Gregory, Will Hall, Brendan, Travie. I see we've already got a line on the Robbie Davis over-under in regards to our Power Hour. You love to see that. 5 minutes and 25 seconds. What should we bet or set the betting odds at, Austin? Maybe minus 120 for the over, plus, 130 for the under. Either way, love to see that already early in this day. Also, those who are in the Big Cock Club Discord, however, the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel, to be sure that your questions are answered there. Again, guys, really exciting. Appreciate you all tuning in. Exciting day to chat as we now know the official schedule for South Carolina, Florida this weekend in the Super Regionals. Gamecocks will take on the Gators officially Friday through Saturday, with first pitch on Friday set for 6 o'clock, Saturday at 3, and then, of course, Sunday will be a TBD game, which that time will be TBD. Friday and Saturday both being aired on ESPN2, so on the big channel, so you can watch those games. No more ESPN Plus, if you will. ESPN2 for Friday and Saturday. We will be also streaming those games in the Big Cock Club Discords. If you guys are interested in tuning in with us, watching, conversating, reacting live to it, we'll be streaming those games along in there as well. Just hanging out, keeping up with all the college baseball and keeping up with the Gamecocks as they take on the Florida Gators in the Super Regionals. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Really excited to chat today. We got a lot to get into, a lot to discuss. Of course, in our third hour, that will be our Q&A Power Hour, if you will, where we'll take all your questions, your comments, your calls. So in the meantime, make sure you get those questions, comments, and calls in. You can leave all your thoughts in the YouTube chat, or you can give us a ring on the TSUS voicemail line, the hotline, if you will, 843-790-3377. It's 843-790-3377. Again, if you cannot call in that third hour, leave us a voicemail right now or shoot us a text, and we'll play that in the third hour. Also, in our second hour, we got our good friend JC Sherbert of Inside the Gamecocks. He will join the show to break down everything from the weekend in regards to Gamecocks baseball, recruiting news as well. Really, really excited to talk with JC. And, of course, guys, in this first hour, I got a couple topics I do want to hit on and discuss. And it is going to be a football-heavy show today. I waited out as long as I could. I was trying to wait until baseball was completely over because I'm like, you know what? We've still got baseball to discuss. The football offseason stuff will be there when we get to it. And also, one other quick update. I know Jeff Gullidge will love to hear this. I was talking to my guy, Chris from SG1 Sports last night. He is the one that I get the rosters from for NCAA football. And he informed me that his final rosters, or really his big roster update, will take place in early July when the Phil Steele magazine drops, right? Because that's Phil Steele's got the most, I would say he's probably got the most accurate depth charts and stuff like that, because he's talking to coaches right now, or he's been talking to coaches. And so he's got a really good feel on, who's going to start where, what guys are going to be in what position. So that is when he'll add in the freshmen, he'll add in the transfers, and that will be the most up-to-date roster. So what that means is for us is you can expect those NCAA football simulations to begin, I'd probably say mid to late July. Late July is probably when we get going, but I'm trying to position it and I'm trying to schedule it to where we're not finishing up the week of the first game like we did last year, right? I don't want to be that up against kickoff, if you will, with everything else we have going on. So mid-July, ideally, it might be like the third week or something, but that is just around the corner, man, because it is June the 6th, and that is just in a month and a half. So it'll be here before you know it, but that's just a fun update, if you will. And as I said before, if you don't like the NCAA football stuff, the simulations, just as Shane Beamer says, go find some joy, right? Go find some joy, because those things are fun. Anyways, guys, it's a football-heavy show today. Like I said, we'll break down everything later this week with the baseball Super Regional. There's going to be a ton to get into We've also, by the way, got a crossover episode, some crossover content upcoming this week with our good friend inallkindsofweather.com. He's on Twitter, got like 31,000 followers, one of the biggest Gator pages out there. We are going to sit down and do sort of a collaboration episode where we talk the South Carolina, Florida Super Regional, break everything down, give updates on what each of the teams have done, and just talk college baseball, man. So it's going to be, excuse me, it's going to be a lot of fun talking with him, getting the Gator perspective, and obviously giving my Gamecock perspective and talking college baseball. Excuse me, guys. My allergies acting up a little bit this morning. But no, just talking college baseball with him and breaking everything down and breaking down what should be a fantastic series. Either way, guys, moving forward, though, like I said, that is all for later in the week, and I think tomorrow night is when we'll be doing that conversation. That is for later in the week, though. I'm thinking Thursday we'll do our full series preview. Friday we'll continue the conversation, but that's when we'll really start to dive into the baseball stuff. With that being said, on today's show, as I mentioned, we are truly, when it comes to college football specifically, we are in the peak of the offseason, or damn near the peak. I would argue, guys, if we did a power ranking, this might be an idea for another show. If we did a power ranking of the months of the year in regards to what's the best month to be a sports fan, or even just a college sports fan, and what is the worst month, aka the most dull month, nothing going on. You could argue that the month of June is one of the slowest, if not the slowest month in the calendar year, right? And that's not really the point of this conversation. I'm just making this point. It's one of the slower months because unless your team right now is one of the 16 teams, we are very fortunate that our team, South Carolina, is one of the 16 teams left playing college baseball. There is literally nothing else going on. I mean, you got some recruiting here and there, but it's really not a ton until we get into SEC Media Days next month. With that being said, though, you guys know that in the preseason, my preseason content, it's always very well structured, and that will be the case yet again. You'll see it take place and set into effect right after July 4th when I lock in my game-by-game predictions for the 2023 football season. We'll then dive into opponent previews. We'll do position unit previews. Of course, we'll talk offense, defense, special teams as a whole and give predictions for those units as well. And then finally, we will get into week one, and we'll break down the game, and we'll be off and running in the 2023 football season. But I figured on today's show, we talk these position unit previews. And something that's really popular in these preseason magazines, especially Athlon, they go through and they rank position units for each football team in the SEC. Where do they stack up in the SEC? And so I figured on today's show, we'd start with this. We're going to rank each South Carolina football position unit from strongest unit to weakest unit entering the 2023 football season. So in my opinion, which position unit is the best to which position unit is the worst. And so we'll start at number one. And I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball here to start because I threw this poll out there on social media, on Twitter specifically, and I said this. What would you consider the best position group for the Gamecocks heading into the 2023 football season? And I listed quarterback, wide receiver, defensive back, and other as my options. None of the options I listed come in at number one on my list. And it's a bit of a trick. It's a bit of I'm playing some mind games, if you will. You got to think critically for this one because you got to remember they're people too. You see where I'm going with this? Number one on my list, kickers and punters. And you think about the duo that is Kai Kroger and Mitch Jeter. It is probably the best punter-kicker duo in all of college football, in my opinion. Kai Kroger, what he did a season ago, serving as a weapon in special teams, not just flipping the field, but what he can do in the fake game as well, with Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo dialing it up. Then you think of Mitch Jeter, who, by the way, guys, did not miss a field goal last year. Went 11 for 11 Also, I think it's safe to say that Kai Kroger, one of the best holders in college football, something that does not get as appreciated as it should. And so, again, I know that's a bit of a wrinkle. I know that's a bit of a kind of messing with you guys' minds a bit, if you will, because we don't think of special teams in the position groups. But I felt like we needed to show love to the special teams, especially being Gamecock fans, Beamer ball to the moon. We got to show love to the specialists. And guys, I would argue the kickers and punters, that is the best position group on the Gamecocks football team. So coming in at number 1, kickers and punters. Now we get into skill position players, more traditional, our position groups. I'm done playing games with you guys. Coming in at number 2 on my rankings of South Carolina football position groups from best to worst entering this season. Coming in at number 2. And there was some debate, some back and forth with me on this one. And then I realized, because you look at these position groups and when you're ranking them, you look at, all right, where are their star players and where is their quality depth? Those are really the 2 things for me that stand out. But sometimes the star player and the importance of that star player, it really carries the entire group, especially when it's a position group where only one guy is going to play at one time. Coming in at number 2 for my rankings, quarterback, the second best position group for the Gamecocks. And this all comes down to Spencer Rattler. Yes, you've got quality depth, right? Luke Doty has played valuable snaps. We all love what Lenoris Sellers can do. You've got highly rated guys like Tanner Bailey in that room, right? But this all comes down to Spencer Rattler. It really does. And what the value that he provides. Now, what version of Spencer Rattler do we get more of? Is it the one we saw in the first 10 games? Is it the final 2 games? Is it the bowl game, which I think was a bit of a mix of both? The statistics in the final 3 versus the first 10 are mind-blowing. They stand out to you. We've mentioned them on these airwaves. Quality depth is something I think you've got one of the better quarterback rooms in the SEC as well because of the way you've recruited, even though Braden Davis has departed for the transfer portal. I mean, again, you've still got Tanner Bailey, Lenoris Sellers. You've got who else? I'm drawing a blank on Colton Gauthier. Yes, I almost forgot Colton Gauthier is on the roster still. And then, of course, Luke Doty. DeCamerion Joyner can also slide in and play quarterback. So you've got supreme depth. The plan will be most certainly Spencer Rattler to take 97, 98% of the snaps. And when you look at his ranking as amongst SEC quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler, in my opinion, you could argue he's the best returning quarterback in the SEC East. I mean, I thought Barrett Sallee made great points of, do you really trust Joe Milton more than Spencer Rattler? I mean, I understand Joe Milton's got hype, and he's in a hypeful system. And I think Joe Milton's going to have a quality year, but do you trust him more than Spencer Rattler, a guy who's been there, done that, has played at an extremely high level and led his team to victory? Now, he may not be better than KJ Jefferson. He may not be better than, Jaden Daniels over at LSU, but, I mean, who else? Who else is better than Spencer Rattler in the SEC? And especially if he's closer to his ceiling than his floor, obviously, this year, if he's closer to that level of play, it's no doubt. So, again, coming in at number 2 on my list, the quarterback position. Coming in at number 3 on my list. And, yes, they've suffered some major losses. And I had a lot of debate between 3 and 4. Had a lot of debate between these 2 position groups. They suffered some major losses, 2 guys notably going to the NFL. You lose a starting day in, day out safety, but I don't think you'll feel much effect from that. Coming in at number 3 on my list, the Gamecocks defensive backs. Again, the losses of Cam Smith, Darius Rush, this is a position group that is a question mark going in the season simply because you lose 2 guys like that. I mean, we need to see, right? Are Marcellus Dial or O'Donnell Fortune, are they ready to step up and be those dudes for South Carolina on the outside? Nick Emanwari leads that group at the back end. DQ Smith next to him. Both those guys, fantastic players. The Gamecocks are going to be good in the back end of the defense. Also, in the other position, guys, admittedly, that I was battling with, do I put 3, do I put 4, was the wide receiver group. And it really does. Again, I mentioned star power, number 1, but depth, number 2, and quality depth. And I think defensive back has more of it. You look at the way you've recruited all these young guys. Again, you also factor in the back end of the defense. And also, I give it to Torian Gray. I really do. Torian Gray, to me, he gets the benefit of the doubt in this situation. They are a question mark entering the season, no doubt. We'll continue to talk about that. Are they as good as last year? I don't know, right? I don't know if they're quite as good as they were last year, but I still think when you look at the guys you have returning, you feel good about Marcellus Dye at the corner. O'Donnell Fortune has shown flashes for sure. And then again, the back end, also at the nickel, the guys you bring back, I think you feel good about the quality depth in this room. And above all else, I mean, you just trust Torian Gray. You trust that Torian Gray is going to find the pieces or put the pieces in place to make you extremely successful, because that is exactly what he's done his first 2 years in Columbia. So coming in at number 3 on my list, the defensive backs. And as I just spoiled, coming in at number 4 in regards to the best to worst Gamecocks position groups entering the 2023 football season, it is the wide receiver position. Now, I may get some pushback on this one. And hear me out. The ceiling of this group is higher than 4th best. It's much higher. The ceiling of the group is higher, but we just haven't seen it, or we haven't seen it consistently enough, right? Juice Wells alone, you could argue, makes this group one of the best on this team. I mean, Juice Wells, guys, I ranked as the best player, the best Gamecock entering this season, ahead of Spencer Rattler. But the receiver position is not like quarterback. Juice Wells is not the only guy playing. He's only one guy. And so you look at quality depth behind him. I think we're all high and optimistic on guys like Xavier Legette, Amarian Brown, Eddie Lewis from Memphis, maybe what DeCarrion Joyner, if he slides out there, what he can do, Landon Sampson, Nicholas Harbor on the outside. Like, we're high on these guys. We're optimistic, but none of those guys I just mentioned have done anything. I mean, Xavier Legette here and there in spurts, but there's just not, in my opinion, enough proven options beyond Juice Wells. Like, who is the number 2 receiver? I mean, we think it's Eddie Lewis. Based off of the spring game, we think it's Eddie Lewis, but do we really know? Do we know that Eddie Lewis is going to be that number 2 option? I mean, Nicholas Harbor's got all the talent in the world. Is he ready to just step in and play wide receiver? I don't think so. I think it's probably going to be mid-season before you really start to hear Nicholas Harbor's name and start to feel his impact. Amarian Brown's been on campus for 2 years, and he's been a nice role player, but nothing really more than that. DeCarrion Joyner has effectively moved to running back, so I don't think he's going to get many targets. Landon Sampson got very, very limited action last year and was, dropped a pass, I think, in the bowl game. That was like the most notable thing he did all year. And then you got some other young guys. So, I mean, there's just not a lot of proven options. Juice Wells, again, alone puts this group in the top half. And the ceiling's extremely high, but you just have to see more consistency from guys like a Xavier Legette. Like, this is a huge year, we all agree, for Xavier Legette. This is a huge year for him, right? Amarian Brown, Eddie Lewis from Memphis. Again, what can he do for you? So there are capable bodies out there, but Juice Wells is the only one that's proven it. He's a damn good one. He's probably a 1,000-yard receiver this year, but he's the only one that's really proven. So for that reason, number 4 on my list, the wide receiver position group. Coming in at number 5 on my list, and this is a position group that completely got flipped after the end of the season. What, you went into that bowl game with, I think, 1 scholarship tight end, and then Nate Atkins got hurt, and you had none. I mean, you were playing 3 quarters of that game with no tight end. The job that Shane Beamer and company have done flipping the tight end position is phenomenal. You pick up Trey Knox from Arkansas. You get Joshua Simon from Western Kentucky, which if you talk to anybody who covers South Carolina football, they will tell you, they will swear by that kid. So I think he could be somebody that's being slept on and could help this football team immensely. I'm just going down the list here. Connor Cox, who's a true freshman, was highly regarded out of Jacksonville, Florida. Nick Elksness, the transfer from the University of Florida, 6'6", 252 pounds. The freshman from Cypress, Texas, Reed McKeeska, 6'6", 242. So When it comes to depth, that's what really stands out about this position. I know Trey Knox is obviously as well a guy that we are all really, really excited about. After the spring game, especially he had like 6 catches for 90 yards and had a touchdown. Now, Trey Knox is someone, he's got a lot to prove too. His last touchdown against Power 5 competition came in 2021. And he never had a season at Arkansas, I think, where he had like over 400 or so yards receiving. I know last year for Arkansas, that was a guy we talked about going in the Gamecocks and Arkansas matchup, but he had like 270 yards receiving, was a solid player, but never like a big breakout guy. But I think we all see with his size, speed, athleticism, the hands he displayed, he can be one of Spencer Rattler's top targets, and especially when his OC is his former position coach at Arkansas. So Trey Knox leads that group, and the quality depth behind him, specifically with Joshua Simon, who I think is, by all accounts and what we've heard, is definitely going to be an impact player for South Carolina. Beyond that, maybe some depth questions. And I think the big questions for me, they revolve around Trey Knox and just what are you going to get out of him on a week-in, week-out basis. But a huge pickup and a great job, again, by Shane Beamer flipping this position group. So coming in at number 5, the tight end position group. At number 6, and this is admittedly because there's 9 total position groups, just to give you guys some context. So this is where things, in my opinion, start to get a little dicey. From like, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then from 5 to 6, there'd almost be like this kind of big drop-off. Or where the question marks really start to pick up, you know what I mean? At number 6, and the hiring, I think the wild card here, is how much of a positive effect do we feel from the hiring of Travian Robertson? How immediate is that positive effect felt? Because South Carolina's defensive line, we'd all agree, it has struggled. And I mean, it has struggled mightily. We talked about last week the stat, 5 straight years. 5 straight years the Gamecocks have finished 11th or worse in stopping the run. The defensive front, you can blame the linebackers, you can blame whatever you want to blame, but the defensive front has done a poor job, just flat out. And not to knock on Torian Gray in the secondary, whatever, but like one of the reasons South Carolina's been so good stopping the pass, and I'm not trying to take anything away, but it's the reality. One of the reasons they've been so good statistically is because teams don't have to throw. They just run it down your throat. And so coming in at number 6 on my list, the defensive front, the defensive line as a whole. And I think there's talent here. I have them so far down this list, honestly, guys, one of the main reasons because show me. That's it. There's been talent the last couple of years. There was talent on that team last year that gave up 198 yards per game. There was talent. There was talent all over the place. And so now, you lose Jordan, no matter what you think about him. You lose Jordan Birch off the edge. You lose Gilbert Edmond off the edge. You lose Zach Pickens at the defensive tackle position. And you're telling me you're going to get better? Well, how? I think Boogie Huntley in the middle. I think Elijah Davis in the middle coming out of JUCO. That's a big-time pickup, and he looked really good in the spring game. Got size for sure, which you need that. Got girth, which you need. Nick Barrett, TJ Sanders, 2 guys they were really high on in the interior last year that I thought played okay. I think they can take a step forward. Tonka Hemingway, my goodness, how do I not mention him? Do-it-all type of dude, just an immense athlete, can play edge and interior. And then you look at the edge. You go to Syracuse and get Jatius Gear. I thought that was a great pickup. He had 3.5 sacks for the Orange last year, so that's a positive pickup. If you can get Jordan Strawn back to 100%, I think that's a huge boost for the edge. What Brian Thomas Jr. did in the spring game, that's encouraging as well. Although, admittedly, I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be. I think he might have been more of a spring game star than he's actually going to be an every down type of contributor. But even with that being said, guys, I think just because of the last 5 years, there are major question marks for me, at least with the defensive front. There's talent up there, but that hasn't meant a whole lot over the last couple of years. That has not meant a whole lot for whatever reason for this group. And so it's like, will this group improve from what it did a year ago? Well, how can it not? Are we going to give up 200 yards per game on the ground? I mean, I thought it was a no-brainer they'd improve from 2021, and you finished off worse, giving up 20 yards per game more. So there's talent up front, but there's a real concern is how is South Carolina going to stop the run and how they're going to pressure the quarterback. Jatius Gear was a big pickup, and you need some of those guys in the interior to step up. So overall, like I like your depth a lot more in the middle than I do on the outside. I think edge is still a major, major question. And for that reason, I've got defensive line coming in at number 6 on my list. Coming in at number 7, and it just seems like they're down here every single year, man. Death, taxes, and the Gamecocks linebackers being average. Very, very average. No, let me not beat up on them too much because I think this is a group that can be and will be and should be much improved. But right now, they still fall at number 7 on my list, the Gamecocks linebacker position group. The return of Mo Kaba is massive. Getting him back to 100%, it's just like Jordan Strawn at the edge. Getting Mo Kaba back is huge. And if you can get him at 100, I mean, that definitely, guys, when Strawn and then Kaba the next week went out, that really affected this team last year in this defense. That really took a toll on this defense. It hurt them, no doubt. So you get Mo Kaba back. I like the pickup of Jerron Willis in the transfer portal from Ole Miss, a former 4-star prospect. Debo Williams returns. He has quality experience. Pup Howard, obviously, is the noteworthy freshman that we are all high on. Bam Martin Scott, I thought, played good football for you last year. Stone Blanton needs to take the next step from being, he was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshman last year, and you saw it at times, notably the Florida game, where he'd kind of get lost, and there goes a big play, and that's all she wrote. So Stone Blanton taking the next step. Donovan Westmoreland, I think, another quality player. So I think with just the return of Mo Kaba, the addition of the way you're recruiting that position, right? And by the way, I did not mention, let me be fair, I did not mention, I'm going backwards, at the defensive line position, Desmond Umeozulu and the guys you have recruited, okay? Because the linebacker position is very similar. These two position groups are similar in the sense of these guys you've recruited are boosting these groups up. And so if these young guys ball out, if these young guys live up to some hype, well, they could certainly move up. But right now, this is what you see, right? This is what you have. So, like, if a guy like Pup Howard becomes all SEC, well, all of a sudden, the linebacker group just got a lot better, right? So I definitely want to make that clear that they are recruiting actively to correct these issues, if you will, or fix these issues. And you could see these groups be much, much better than I've given them credit for. But you need a guy like Pup Howard. You need your young guys to step up. Stone Blanton's a young guy, got to step up. So you got some quality depth, but just how good it is it? It's really going to come down to the level of play with these young guys. And for that reason, number 7 on my list, the linebacker position. Coming in at number 8 on the list. And again, guys, there's only 9 of these, only 9 position groups to rank. So by process of elimination, you will know which one number 9 is. Coming in at number 8, I would have maybe had you a spot or 2 higher had one of your, and arguably your best player in the position group, not gone down for the season in the spring game. But unfortunately, Jalen Nichols is probably not playing football this year based off of everything that we have heard. This was already a group coming into this season that had lost 3 starters from a season ago. And a group that last year got better over the course of the season, but was not great. Finished outside the top 100 in running the football, which seems to, again, just be a common theme around here for whatever reason. And as I mentioned with the previous 2 position groups, which you would expect this, right? All these groups at the bottom of this list, they are recruiting their tails off to fix. They're recruiting their tails off to add quality depth to these positions because that's what you need. The only thing that's going to fix it is recruiting. But with the injury to Jalen Nichols, the losses of the other players from last year, and I know you added a couple guys in the portal, but guys, realistically, you added a transfer from Western Illinois and Charlotte and Mercer. I mean, are these guys going to step in and be SEC offensive linemen? I have my doubts. I have my doubts. So depth's a concern. Depth's a major, major concern. I mean, there's a good chance Marquis Anderson, who's a true freshman, is going to be seeing significant playing time. And guys, you don't play true freshmen on the offensive front because you have great depth. If you have great depth, you don't force true freshmen to play up front because most of the time, 99% of the time, they are not ready. That being said, number 8 on my list, the offensive line, the offensive front for South Carolina. And I don't think this one's a surprise. Again, especially with that loss of Jalen Nichols. It's unfortunate, too. He's your best offensive lineman. Now you've got questions at left tackle. And, guys, offensive line is one of those positions that once the injuries start happening, all it takes is one like this, and the ripple effect begins, right? Because you got to move this guy to this and this guy to this, and all of a sudden this backup's got to play, and it just becomes a scenario where your best 5 are not in their best positions. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of question marks. Obviously, you pick up Nick Gargiulo from Yale. That's another one I didn't mention as well, and that's a big kicker. I mean, he was a hot commodity in the transfer portal and probably going to be your starting center. And if you got a good center, you got a chance to have a good offensive line, or at least a solid offensive line. But I think if you ask most realistic Gamecock fans, if this offensive line's average this year, you'll take that. If this offensive line can just be average, just don't be terrible. Don't completely wreck the offensive game plan. You don't have to go win the games. We don't have to run for 300. Just don't lose the ball games. You got to give Spencer Rattler just a little bit of time. Just give us a little bit of run push. We're not asking for a ton, but you got to have something. But for that reason, depth concerns, injury to Jalen Nichols, number 8 on my list, it is the offensive line position group, which brings us to number 9. Number 9 on my list. And by process of elimination, you guys already know where I'm going. It is the running back position and the running back position group. And this is one, guys, that I'm still really surprised that South Carolina was not able to pick up anyone from the portal. And they tried. They tried with Logan Diggs. They gave it their best effort. Give him credit. That's a guy that was probably always going to LSU because he's from Baton Rouge. And typically if LSU wants a guy from there, they're getting him. I mean, it's very rare they don't. The fact that he left to Notre Dame was a major upset. But you tried with Logan Diggs and you missed. You tried with the kid from NC State and you missed. You tried with the kid that went to Mississippi State, the Penn State kid, you missed. So you've had some swings and misses. That's okay. That's fine. It happens. It happens. Will they add anyone? Because the portal never stops. Guys, I don't think so. I think they're kind of set and content with what they have, or at least Shane Beamer's just accepted that what he's got is what he's got, and he's going with it. All we got's all we need, but all we got's all we got, too, when it comes to running back. When you look at the running back position, DeCarrion Joyner slides into this room. What does that mean? Hey, he might be a 1,000-yard rusher, man. We have no idea. We have no idea. But the fact of the matter is it's a big, fat question mark. Mario Anderson comes from D2 Newberry. Go Wolves. Comes from D2 Newberry. What did he? I think he almost won, or did he win the award that is basically the Heisman Trophy for D2? Ran for over 3,000 yards in 3 years for the Wolves. But is he ready to make that transition, that jump from D2 to the SEC? Juju McDowell I like a lot, but I don't think anybody thinks he's a bell cow running back. Then you got Dontavius Braswell, who's a true freshman. And granted, a 4-star true freshman. So, this isn't just some run-of-the-mill whoever. This isn't a walk-on, right? This is a dude that pretty highly thought of in recruiting circles. But when I look at this running back room, unfortunately, guys, I just don't see, and we've talked about it before, I see a lot of supporting cast pieces, some very valuable supporting cast pieces. I don't see a true SEC caliber RB1. And I don't even know if I see a SEC caliber RB2. I see a lot of RB3 kind of guys, and maybe DeCarrion Joyner can prove us all wrong and be an every down back. I mean, he's an athlete. He's a gifted athlete. I think if they can be creative in the run game, I think they can be productive enough, or at least give the facade that, hey, we can kind of run the ball a little bit, so you have to at least respect it. But I don't think I'm going to get many arguments having this one dead last. I just don't think I'm going to have many arguments. Because, again, right now you've got a converted wide receiver a D2 transfer, a scat back, and a true freshman. That's who you got in this running back room. That's who you got. I don't think I'm missing anyone. Let me see. Let me make sure. And then you got guys like DJ Twitty from East Tennessee State, Dante Turbo Miller from Columbia, and Nathan Harris Wainick. I mean, guys, all due respect, I'm trying to talk about guys that I think realistically are going to play and make an impact. I all due respect to those guys, I don't see them realistically competing for the job or any sort of job, whether that be RB1, 2, or 3. So I think it all comes down to Kerryon Joyner, Mario Anderson, Juju, and Dontavius Braswell. There's athletes in that room, but there's nobody that is even remotely proven as an SEC running back. Juju McDowell the most, but as we saw last year, asking him to run on the inside is a bad idea. It is a bad idea. He is more of your scat back type of player. So coming in at number 9 on my list, the running back position. So let's go back through my rankings of each South Carolina football position group from best to worst entering the 2023 season. Coming in at number 1, kicker and punter. Number 2, quarterback. Number 3, defensive back. Number 4, wide receiver. Number 5, tight end. Number 6, defensive line. Number 7, linebacker. Number 8, offensive line. And number 9, running back. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation going here on this Tuesday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. Attention all Gamecocks seafood lovers. Are you tired of searching for the freshest seafood in town? Look no further than the Carolina Fish Market, your go-to destination for the finest and most flavorful seafood in the Carolinas and beyond. Introducing the new Carolina Seafood Subscription Box, a culinary delight delivered right to your doorstep. Each month, you'll receive a carefully curated selection of fresh local seafood sourced directly from the waters of the Carolinas and beyond. From succulent shrimp to mouth-watering grouper to flounder or tuna and everything in between, their subscription box brings the ocean's bounty straight to your Gamecock kitchen. What sets the Carolina Fish Market apart is their commitment to quality and sustainability. They work closely with local fishermen and women who use responsible fishing practices, ensuring that every bite you take supports both your taste buds and our precious marine ecosystems. They've even won Best Seafood 5 out of the last 8 years. But that's not all. They're offering free shipping to all TSUS listeners on every Carolina Seafood subscription box, making it even easier for you to indulge in the flavors of the coast. Experience the convenience and joy of having fresh seafood delivered right to your door without any of the hassle. Don't miss on this incredible opportunity to elevate your culinary adventures with the Carolina Fish Market's Carolina Seafood Subscription Box. Join the seafood enthusiasts across the nation who are savoring the taste of the Carolinas, one delectable bite at a time, and just in time for Father's Day. Visit their website today at carolinafishmarket.com. That's carolinafishmarket.com, and embark on a seafood journey like no other. Freshness, flavor, and convenience await you. Order your Carolina Seafood subscription box now and use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code SPURSUP, SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. The Carolina Fish Market, where taste meets the ocean.
Muscle doggy ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, June the 6th, 2023. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Big recruiting news that's happening right now. Georgia picking up a commitment from Justin Green, who was a guy that South Carolina was targeting, a defensive lineman. And then Clemson gets another commitment, four-star wide receiver TJ Moore, a wide receiver out of Tampa, Florida. And in the latest, guys, get this. I mean, this is hard to kind of believe. In the latest rankings from 24/7 Sports, the Gamecocks are one spot behind Clemson. Granted, they have one more commitment in the Gamecocks, but South Carolina now sits at 11th in the 24/7 Sports rankings. Clemson at 10th. Are we worried? Is that something to be concerned about? I don't think it is. I think it's still early. You only have 9 commitments. You're going to get like another, 14, 15, something like that? But it's just interesting. Very interesting. It's interesting how much can change recruiting. That's a conversation for another day, though. And we'll talk recruiting with JC, by the way, later in the show. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Hayden, I love the comment. Hold up. Let Beamer cook. I agree. That being said, guys, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it is a football-heavy show, so we're going to keep the conversation rolling. We are beginning today my top 5 series when it comes to the Gamecocks. You might recall I did this last summer, really all throughout the month of June, because we were completely dead in the month of June with no Gamecocks baseball, not a lot going on outside of recruiting. So I figured, why not? This is list season, as I've mentioned before. So today we are beginning our lists, if you will, around the Gamecocks as I give my top 5 favorite football games to rewatch during the offseason. We all do it, right? In the dead of summer, and it's so much more accessible now than it's ever been. I remember, I say back in the early days, but in my teen years growing up as a Gamecock fan, there was CSS. Who remembers the college flash classics that would come on? And there was like commentary during the game. 92 South Carolina, Tennessee was a game that I felt like was always showed on that series. There were some others as well, but now we have YouTube, we have the SEC network, we have so many different ways to watch all the games. And when it's the dead of summer and we're counting down the days and you get that football itch and you're like, I just can't wait for it to get here. Sometimes the best thing you can do is go back and to relive the glory days and relive some of the best games in school history. Now, the fun part about this list is going to be different for everybody, right? My favorite games to go back and rewatch is probably going to be different than your favorite games because some of these hit home for me personally, right? Some of these are really all of these hit home for me personally, but some in different ways. Like some I was at the game. And so I love going back and rewatching and just the thrill of seeing it and kind of reliving what I saw in person as well. That sticks out. For some others, there's some very obvious no-brainer choices on this list. There are some very blatant omissions that I know many of you will disagree with. So again, my top 5 favorite football games to rewatch during the offseason. And this list has changed since last year. Hint, hint. For example, I had 2006 against Clemson on my list. No longer is that on my list. I had the Duke's Mayo Bowl, the Dak Joyner Bowl on my list. No longer is that on my list. There are some other games that I have omitted that stand out as some of the best in school history, but these are my top 5. Coming in at number 5, and as I just mentioned, this is one that I was at in person, and I'll give you guys some background. I'll give you all a little bit of a story, if you will. My grandfather, as I've talked before, is the reason I'm a Gamecock fan, right? He is who instilled this love of the garnet and black in my veins, if you will. And so we used to watch every single game together in his garage, right? At my grandparents' house in the garage. We'd watch every single game, basically from 2000, I would say 4 to 2008. I watched practically every single game with him. And many games after that as well, because 2009, I went to college, obviously, but I would come home, watch games, all that stuff. So 2013, he began to get very, very sick. And he couldn't go to games anymore at any point. Not that we were going to a ton already because, like I said, I was in college, whatever. But 2013, I made the decision. I'm getting season tickets. That was the first time I ever had season tickets to South Carolina. And so it was a special year all the way around, right? It was a special year all the way around. But none were more special that year. And coming in at number 5 on my list, the 2013 season finale against the Clemson Tigers. The 5th straight win in that series at that time. Number 1, being in that stadium, electric. I mean, that was, for anybody who was there, who's watching, who's listening, you know, that was an incredible atmosphere. And at that point, it's funny, you knew we were going to beat them, right? Because South Carolina at that point owned Clemson. 5 straight. That was going for 5 straight. And in all those games, the Gamecocks just found a way. Just found a way every single time. Whether it be turnovers, big plays, whatever it was, Carolina owned Clemson. And so to go back and rewatch that and relive that, also one of my favorite Todd Ellis calls comes from that game on the trick play from Pharaoh Cooper to Brandon Wilds to seal the deal. And Todd Ellis says, "Chaos in Williams-Brice, chaos." One of my favorite calls of all time. Coming in at number 5 on my list, 2013 against Clemson. At number 4, and this is where maybe some recency bias is setting in. I think more so this stands out as one of the greatest games in school history. It will forever and ever and ever. But number 4 on my list, and this was not here last year, that's because it hadn't happened yet. At number 4, the 2022 matchup against the Tennessee Volunteers. 63-38 will ever ring in the minds of Gamecock fans. And that's one, my good friend and I, we watched that right after the fact. We watched that thing Sunday night. We couldn't wait for SF Cocking on YouTube. Shout out to them to drop the replay of the game. And I don't think I have to spend a lot of time giving you all the context on that one, right? Because we spent all week talking about it, and I picked Tennessee to win that game. I think the final score I had was 59-13. I had Tennessee winning. Gave Carolina no chance. Tennessee is going to bend South Carolina over and do whatever they want to do to them for 60 minutes, right? Remember me saying that? And then Carolina finds a way. Somehow, some way, demotes Marcus Satterfield finally, and Spencer Rattler plays. I mean, I would say arguably the greatest performance by a South Carolina quarterback in an individual game. Right up there, rivals the Steven Garcia game against Bama. Rivals that ball game. So that 2022, that game last year against Tennessee, that is one we will go back and we will watch on replay pretty much every single offseason. And it comes at number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3 on my list, speaking of Steven Garcia, you can't have a top 5 list of favorite games to rewatch during the offseason. You cannot have this list without mentioning it. Number 3, 2010 against Alabama. I mean, still probably the most magical day in school history. And I would argue, guys, I think it's the biggest win in school history. I really do. I think that is the biggest win when you look at the history of South Carolina football. It's either that or it is the game in the swamp in 2010 to send South Carolina to Atlanta, because that's actually the one that punched the ticket. But I just feel like what that 2010 game against Alabama, what it symbolized in regards to, that was South Carolina football kicking the door down. Like, you know what? We've been kind of a cute story. You know, we've been a 8-win, 9-win team under Steve Spurrier. That was South Carolina telling the college football world, like, we are here. Like, we have arrived as a real contender. Like, we are a team to take very, very seriously. And it's what led to 3 straight 11-win seasons, in my opinion. Coming in at number 3, 2010 against Bama. At number 2, At number 2. It's always fun to go back and rewatch these rivalry games when you win them, right? It's always fun to go watch those games. Coming in at number 2 on my list, last year's game at Clemson. Not a whole lot I need to say about this one. I mean, what a game. 31-30. You've got the entertainment factor, right? You've got the entertainment factor. You got the fact South Carolina won the football game. You got the fact South Carolina won for the first time since 2013. You've got the fact the Gamecocks won as a 2-touchdown underdog. All the dramatics and the performance by Spencer Rattler, the performance by Juice Wells, the big plays defensively. I mean, that game's got all the dramatics you could think of. Everything that makes a great college football game a great college football game. And what a sweet victory it was. And what a huge win for Shane Beamer's program. That's another one I watched right after the fact. Literally Sunday night after the game had happened. Literally right after the fact. Number 2 on my list. The game a season ago, 2022, at Memorial Stadium against the Tigers. And coming in at number 1, and this one will be highly scrutinized, highly criticized. That's totally fine. This is a personal choice. This is a personal decision to make this one number 1 because, again, this one hits home for me. So this one's very personal for me. Again, I was in the stadium, got to experience this in person, and it's probably one of the most entertaining South Carolina football games I've ever witnessed. I think it is. I like the back and forth when you think of the two teams. Number 1 on my list, 2014 against the Georgia Bulldogs and 38-35, the 4th and inches late in the game. Marshall Morgan's missed kick, which is one of the loudest I have ever heard Williams-Brice Stadium. That game also just had everything you could want in a great college football game. Back and forth, 2 offenses scoring, right? Tons of offenses. Dylan Thompson, Shaq Rowland, Pharaoh Cooper doing their thing. I mean, there was no defense played at all. Gamecocks went up against Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb and all those guys. Mike Bobo is Georgia's OC, right? And also, too, I'll say that was one of the last times Willie B was really rocking. Because after that, I think it became kind of obvious, okay, the Spurrier era is kind of going in a direction not so positive. Not so positive. But either way, that 2014 Georgia game for me, man, just sticks out. It's riveting start to finish. It's a great football game, and to hell with Georgia. It's always fun to watch a win over Georgia. So, my top 5 favorite football games to rewatch during the offseason. Number 5, 2013 versus Clemson. Number 4, 2022 versus Tennessee. Number 3, 2010 versus Bama. Number 2, 2022 at Clemson. And number 1, 2014 versus Georgia. An obvious omission, guys, 2012 against Georgia. The reason I don't put that, the first quarter is the most exciting quarter ever to watch. The last 3 quarters, admittedly, are a snooze fest. They just are. They're a snooze fest. I don't know what else to tell you. Still a great game to watch, though. That's my top 5. Would love to hear yours. What are your top 5 favorite football games to rewatch during the offseason? Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. That being said, I'll really quickly give my Mount Rushmore of Gamecock football players, and then we'll jump right into our conversation with J.C. Sherber. Guys, we got that and much more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. Attention all Gamecock seafood lovers. Are you tired of searching for the freshest seafood in town? Look no further than the Carolina Fish Market, your go-to destination for the finest and most flavorful seafood in the Carolinas and beyond. Introducing the new Carolina Seafood Subscription Box, a culinary delight delivered right to your doorstep. Each month, you'll receive a carefully curated selection of fresh local seafood sourced directly from the waters of the Carolinas and beyond. From succulent shrimp to mouth-watering grouper to flounder or tuna and everything in between, their subscription box brings the ocean's bounty straight to your Gamecock kitchen. What sets the Carolina Fish Market apart is their commitment to quality and sustainability. They work closely with local fishermen and women who use responsible fishing practices, ensuring that every bite you take supports both your taste buds and our precious marine ecosystems. They've even won Best Seafood 5 out of the last 8 years. But that's not all. They're offering free shipping to all TSUS listeners on every Carolina Seafood subscription box, making it even easier for you to indulge in the flavors of the coast. Experience the convenience and joy of having fresh seafood delivered right to your door without any of the hassle. Don't miss on this incredible opportunity to elevate your culinary adventures with the Carolina Fish Market's Carolina Seafood subscription box. Join the seafood enthusiasts across the nation who are savoring the taste of the Carolinas, one delectable bite at a time, and just in time for Father's Day. Visit their website today at carolinafishmarket.com. That's carolinafishmarket.com, and embark on a seafood journey like no other. Freshness, flavor, and convenience await you. Order your Carolina Seafood subscription box now and use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code SPURSUP, SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. The Carolina Fish Market, where taste meets the ocean.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, June the 6th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. That being said, let's keep the conversation rolling, guys. I want to dive into this. As I mentioned previously, it's list season, but it's also Mount Rushmore season. You're going to see a lot of folks on social media making Mount Rushmores of anything and everything you can think of. So I figured, why not? Who's on the Mount Rushmore of Gamecocks football? Gamecocks football specifically. Who is on the Mount Rushmore? So what would the Mount Rushmore be? The top 4 figures in Gamecocks football. Can be player, can be coach, can be administrator. The top 4 Gamecocks from Gamecocks football. Who's on the Mount Rushmore? I will start with the obvious. You win the Heisman Trophy. I don't care what school you're at. You should be on the Mount Rushmore. George Rogers. who won the most prestigious individual award one can attain in college football, that being the Heisman Trophy, of course. Big George's charisma, his smile, his play on the field obviously set him apart. And you look at the statue outside of Williams-Brice Stadium, there was a reason why he is enshrined in that way. So for me, George Rogers deserves a spot on the Mount Rushmore of Gamecocks football. Also on my Mount Rushmore, sticking with the running back position, Marcus Lattimore. And Marcus Lattimore is a guy, we all know the injuries. It's extremely unfortunate that his career played out the way it did, because he would have set every single record, would have shattered every record. Obviously shattered George's record of rushing touchdowns. 38 I think he finished with. And when you look at the limited number of games he played in, it's insane that he had that many. But one of the things that makes you stand out as well, statistics are great. But when you talk about transcending the sport and changing the game and really, truly changing the culture, that's something Marcus Lattimore did by choosing South Carolina. And he's mentioned, I thought it was so interesting, guys. He's mentioned before that he almost went to Auburn. He almost went to Tennessee. He almost went to a school not named South Carolina, because he said that's what the top players in the state of South Carolina do. They don't go to South Carolina. And so there's always got to be a guy, right? Without Marcus, there's probably no Alshon. Without Marcus, there's probably no Clowney. Without Marcus, there may not be a Stephon Gilmore. Without Marcus Lattimore, that narrative doesn't begin to change. Without Marcus Lattimore, Gamecocks football most certainly doesn't reach the heights that it reached in 2010, 2011, and beyond. Also on my Mount Rushmore, Connor Shaw, the winningest quarterback in school history. I know there's a lot of recency bias here, but guys, let's call it for what it is. Recently has been the best era of South Carolina football. I mean, guys, I've talked about this before. Since 2000, this has been the glory days. This has really been, since 2010, it's been the glory days. We are in the best stretch of Carolina football ever, because you really have to appreciate what Gamecocks football has come from. I know my guy Luke RJ doesn't like to hear it, but man, the 90s were rough. They were rough. And outside of 84 and I think 87, a couple of years in the 80s, they were rough too. 70s were rough too. You had 69 ACC title. Hadn't been a lot of winning in Columbia. Hadn't been a whole lot of winning. So that's why you're seeing the Mount Rushmore. It's a lot of them, these there is recency bias with it. But Connor Shaw, winningest quarterback in school history, in my opinion, guys, the greatest winner in school history. And Connor doesn't even get enough credit from his own fan base, I think, at times, from some. Some will say he was a product of, he had a great team around him and the defense. And yeah, I understand that. I get that. But that man completely orchestrated what South Carolina did in the greatest run in school history. Orchestrated that in 11, 12, and 13. And so I don't see how you can have a Mount Rushmore without having Connor Shaw on it. And finally, guys, my final figure. Who's on the Mount Rushmore? Gamecocks football. This one's a no-brainer. It's the greatest coach in school history, Steve Spurrier. And there's some folks out there, hey, listen, if you're still holding a grudge, guess what? A grudge only hurts the person holding it. If you can't find a way to forgive what happened in 2015, to forgive Steve Spurrier for the exit, that's a shame. There's nobody going to argue with you that it was an ideal situation. Nobody going to argue with you that, wasn't maybe kind of crappy what he did, but that exit in 2015, his stopping of recruiting at some point, which led to South Carolina's demise. I understand all those things. But that does not overshadow what Steve Spurrier did and what he accomplished at South Carolina. Guys, I remember, and I've said this before, I remember in 2004 watching the Gamecocks, Lou Holtz head coach. And I remember vividly when South Carolina beat Arkansas. And I was so happy. I mean, like, I was overjoyed. You would have thought Gamecocks football just won the national championship. Why was I overjoyed? Because Carolina just won their 6th game. And 6 wins meant South Carolina was going to a bowl game. Like, guys, at that point, going to a bowl game was a huge deal. Huge. Think about it. The school's first bowl win came less than a decade prior. What Steve Spurrier did with South Carolina football, it even goes just beyond, obviously, the winning led to this. But the way he changed the perception of South Carolina football, the way he completely changed the culture around South Carolina football, and the way that he made folks in Columbia believe that Gamecocks football can and should be a winner. He raised the standard. He raised the expectation. He set the bar. And it's one of the reasons why a guy like Shane Beamer, who was on that 2010 staff, can come in and say things like, I believe there's no reason why we can't win at the highest level. There's no reason why we can't compete for and win the SEC championship. The only reason Shane Beamer can come in here and say those things and not get laughed out of the room is because of what Steve Spurrier did at Carolina and the way that he changed Gamecocks football forever. And oh, by the way, the winningest coach in school history. 5-game win streak against Clemson. SEC championship game appearance. 3 straight 11-win seasons. First 11-win season in school history. Need I continue? My Mount Rushmore for Gamecocks football. George Rogers, Marcus Lattimore, Steve Spurrier, and Connor Shaw. Guys, that being said, quick break. Then we got JC Sherbert on the other side. Really excited to talk with JC. Hey, that and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. Attention all Gamecock seafood lovers. Are you tired of searching for the freshest seafood in town? Look no further than the Carolina Fish Market, your go-to destination for the finest and most flavorful seafood in the Carolinas and beyond. Introducing the new Carolina Seafood Subscription Box, a culinary delight delivered right to your doorstep. Each month, you'll receive a carefully curated selection of fresh local seafood sourced directly from the waters of the Carolinas and beyond. From succulent shrimp to mouth-watering grouper to flounder or tuna and everything in between, their subscription box brings the ocean's bounty straight to your Gamecock kitchen. What sets the Carolina Fish Market apart is their commitment to quality and sustainability. They work closely with local fishermen and women who use responsible fishing practices, ensuring that every bite you take supports both your taste buds and our precious marine ecosystems. They've even won Best Seafood 5 out of the last 8 years. But that's not all. They're offering free shipping to all TSUS listeners on every Carolina Seafood subscription box, making it even easier for you to indulge in the flavors of the coast. Experience the convenience and joy of having fresh seafood delivered right to your door without any of the hassle. Don't miss on this incredible opportunity to elevate your culinary adventures with the Carolina Fish Market's Carolina Seafood Subscription Box. Join the seafood enthusiasts across the nation who are savoring the taste of the Carolinas, one delectable bite at a time, and just in time for Father's Day. Visit their website today at carolinafishmarket.com. That's carolinafishmarket.com, and embark on a seafood journey like no other. Freshness, flavor, and convenience await you. Order your Carolina Seafood subscription box now and use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code SPURSUP, SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. The Carolina Fish Market, where taste meets the ocean.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, June the 6th, 2023. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. A jam-packed day, and of course, he joins us. We'll go ahead and get him in here. He joins us every single Tuesday. JC Sherbert of Inside the Gamecocks of the Big Spur. JC, what's going on, my friend? How you doing?
Hey, pretty good. I've been wearing this UNLV hat on the air since before the regional. I shaved before the regional, and so there we go. 3-0.
I was going to say, I could tell you're looking clean, man. You're looking.
Well, I started thinking about it, Chris. I was in Columbia and Charleston at the end of April, and I'd kind of shaved before that, and I just kind of let it grow out when I got back up here, and I realized that that's when the losing started, is when I was in Charleston and Columbia. So I was like, I need to get rid of this thing, and it's a new day, and so here we go. So y'all will see if Carolina wins this weekend. You'll see the UNLV hat next week. And probably if I make it to Omaha, I'll be in the stands like a clown with a UNLV visor on, pulling for the Gamecocks. So
that'll be a fun one to explain to people, I'm sure. But hey, listen, I respect it, superstitions, man. Well, it's great to see you and great to chat with you, JC. And we'll go ahead and get right into it, man. What a weekend in Columbia at Founders Park. Gamecocks really dominate, I would say, the Columbia region. I mean, obviously it started against Central Connecticut State, which was just a straight up bloodbath from the jump. The game against NC State, really high quality game, two quality teams. I thought Gamecocks get the dub behind some great pitching with Jack Mahoney and others, 6-3 the final. And then Gamecocks are able to outslug Campbell in a highly anticipated contest in the regional final and punch their ticket at the Super Regionals for the first time since 2018. Your thoughts, takeaways, impressions from a very successful weekend at Founders Park?
Yeah, we just talked to Mark Kingston on the show just now, probably about 15 minutes ago. And I think for as much criticism as he's gotten through the years, right, and rightfully so, with a lot of the losses and stuff, and it's not so much I know some things have been out of his control during his tenure, everything from COVID to the recruiting rules to inheriting recruiting classes to the injuries last year and this year. But there's standards around here in the sport, and he knows that, and everybody knows that. I think in the head coach, because you have a hitting coach, pitching coach, third, whatever, but your head coach it's his job to lead the program, right? And it's his job to kind of right the ship when things aren't going well, and to keep things steady and to keep guys from quitting, because these are young people still, and all that good stuff. So it's just one of those things where I think he deserves credit for maintaining positivity, for saying, kind of the mantra he's had. Well, we had to sacrifice some battles to win a war, which makes sense. That analogy makes sense. And so I think Mark Kingston deserves credit for that. I think there were a lot of doubters that, the Gamecocks were, not going to win this regional, including most of the national media and everybody else. But I think he ended up being right in that once his whole team is back together, they're a pretty good baseball team. And they showed that, you get behind early on Sunday with the 2-run blast. The Camel was a very good hitting team, a very old team too. I mean, those guys, they're grown men out there. They've been in college, like the Tommy Boy plan. They've been in college for like 7 years. They're not doctors, but I thought Campbell was confident. I thought they felt like they would go and win the game, and it wasn't meant to be. And you think about how the Gamecocks started the onslaught and started scoring on them. I mean, heck, Chris, how many balls did not leave the infield before Carolina tied it up? And that's just guts, smart baseball, strategically taking advantage of some really suspect defense by Campbell. And then, when McGillis hit the home run after all that, rarely do I just bust out laughing when something like that happens. I'm usually yelling or happy, but I just laughed because I just thought it was hilarious. He got up there and you've had all this small ball, all these, stringing together hits, guys missing ground and stuff. And then McGillis just boom. And there you go. That's the Gamecock baseball team we've seen all year. And hopefully it continues in what'll be a very tough super regional against the University of Florida. I watched them quite a bit this weekend. Texas Tech gave them all they had, but boy, when Florida's pitchers are going and they got those sluggers in the lineup, they're a really good baseball team. So the Gamecocks have their hands full with this one, but we'll see what happens starting on Friday.
JC, you mentioned that inning where a ball did not leave the infield. It felt very 2010-ish, 2011-ish, where those teams just, you think about UCLA when they took on Garrett Cole and there were just a couple of squibbers and nubbers and Texas leaguers, and you look up and Carolina wins that game 7-0. And those teams just found ways to do that. The whole win anyway mantra, find a way. Those teams certainly did that successfully. Did Mark Kingston give you guys any indication on what the plan may be on the mound going into this weekend? Because, one of the big topics, JC, we've been discussing is just what do you do with Will Sanders now? He looked really good. It looks like vintage Will Sanders out there. Is he now just a weapon used out of the bullpen? We all know his history with Florida. He doesn't like Florida, notably, and he has shoved it up there where every time he's faced them. So did Mark Kingston give any sort of indication on that and also any other strategy maybe going in the weekend?
Well, he did say he expects the lineup to be intact. I think he likes where his lineup is right now. Quite frankly, I do too. You got you got Braswell in the 7. I like that. Braswell's a good hitter, but that shows kind of the depth that you have now. Whereas, when it was Tippett and Tippett, Stone and Brewer down there at the bottom, you're kind of like, oh well. Hopefully a nice bunt will happen or something, But he did say he's going to stay with his lineup. As far as pitching goes, he didn't tip his hand. I got the impression because he left the door open for Will Sanders to start a game Saturday. Didn't say Saturday. This weekend. Maybe Friday, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday. I don't know that. I don't know that you. Chris, would you consider it a gamble to start him in game one? I I don't know that I would necessarily, given his success against Florida. And that's one of these cases said they're going to look at Keys is a big matchups guy. He's going to look at all the matchups, the history of success against their hitters, that kind of thing. Because if you do get Sanders and he does pitch a gem and you steal that first one, then through 2 games, you still got Hicks, you still got Mahoney, you still got Becker, you still got Eli Jones. You've got your bullpen kind of set. So I don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you still start Hicks and don't upset the apple cart and all that. It would just, it would be a shame, given Will Sanders' success against Florida, if you go down there and lose 2 games and he never pitches.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of, I think, what's going through Kinks' mind right now. So he did not tell us definitively, but I was under the impression, based on his comments and him specifically leaving the door open for Will to possibly start this weekend, that it is a possibility.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, JC, because you bring up a great point. I mean, what you don't want to have happen is you go through the weekend and he never pitches, and just because, again, like his success against Florida, it's so obvious just the success he's having. I mean, you look at the numbers; it's dominating type of stuff. And again, he mentioned openly about his feelings, personal feelings to Florida, and whatever edge you need, you want to use it. Obviously, in this weekend. Did Kingston give off any impressions that maybe they felt disrespected coming into this past weekend in the Columbia Regional? Because I know, like you mentioned, all of the hype and the love, and I understand, like, Campbell was a quality club all year. They are a quality club, and I think they just simply put ran out of pitching and ran into a buzzsaw that is South Carolina at Founders Park. But I got to think, man, JC, they had a massive chip on their shoulder with everybody just sort of, I mean, you had, like, people, like, this wasn't just folks on Twitter. Like, you had, like, Kyle Peterson saying that, man, Campbell got a great draw in that regional. You had people saying that, oh, this is Campbell's regional. South Carolina is just hosting it. Like, I mean, there was chatter coming from all directions. Did Kingston give any indication that chip on their shoulder led to the performance that we saw?
Not really. He talked more about, like, his team being in a positive place and expecting when he spoke more to, like, the comfort level, like. And this makes sense too. We talked about this on our show and with John Whittle and some other folks. McGillis and Wimmer being back in the lineup and LaCroix being at his normal spot and stuff. It's not necessarily that those guys have to go have multi-hit games and things like that, though they did hit the ball pretty well. It gives everybody else, like Ethan Petrie and Cole Messina, and these guys, I mean, there's a reason there is such a thing as a batting order, as we all know. And you like to stack hitters behind hitters so you can't pitch around guys and things like that. And I think this gives everybody else confidence. I think we saw why, although Braswell's done a great job at short filling in defensively, we saw why Wimmer, they're pretty happy with him at short. I mean, the guy's got a cannon, and then, throwing people out and things like that. And I like Tippett in center field an awful lot. I know he had the one kind of misplayed ball late against Campbell, but I thought he held up pretty well. But he spoke. Coach Keeson talks more about, like, just the confidence and camaraderie, based on everybody being back and them really validating to themselves that, hey, Coach wasn't just lying. That wasn't a fluke how we started the season. We were really that good, and guess what? We're back, and that's kind of the feeling I got. Now, that said, have I maybe heard through the grapevine that a lot of Carolina people weren't really all that fired up about how Campbell came in and sort of carried themselves? Yeah, I think that's a thing, and I think that's a thing in baseball. I mean, you just don't. These kids these days that play college baseball are very emotional creatures. And a lot of bat flipping and hooping and hollering and stuff. And that's great, but I do think there was some feeling of, hey, these guys, we're South Carolina. These guys are freaking Campbell. Okay. And I felt that way last week. I was like, I said, I don't remember Campbell having to play 3 games at Arkansas or Kentucky or to have to play Tennessee at home or whatever. So I did think there was some schedule strength issue there that would benefit the Gamecocks, provided they were at full strength and hitting on all cylinders, and they were. So that's that has to give them confidence. But you talk about the disrespect card. That card's about to flip over for this weekend. because Florida remembers what happened in Columbia. And
Mhm.
they remember struggling against the Gamecocks in Columbia mightily. And, I don't, Florida's a type of program, sometimes as talented as they are, they'll drop a game or two in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
But, I think those guys are going to be ready to get some revenge. You almost wish that sweep didn't happen, and you're like, man, but it should be a heck of a series. This is yet another time South Carolina and Florida in a sport, a major men's
Mhm.
sport. They've played with a lot on the line, starting with the 2000 football game down there when, Carolina blocked 2 punts, but then Spurrier ran a fake punt and dialed it up. That was for the SEC East. And then, years later, 2010 for the SEC East, the Gamecocks won in football down there. In 2010, also, they played for the SEC championship, the last series of the season. Florida won that.
Mhm.
Gamecocks won the national title. In 2011, the Gamecocks played them in the College World Series final. In 2012, they played them in the opening game of the College World Series. The Gamecocks won that one. 2017 in men's basketball in the Elite Eight, Gamecocks won that one. So the Gamecocks, when they've played Florida with stuff a lot on the line, since that early, loss in 2000 to Steve Spurrier and those guys, and that would have been a miracle had Carolina gotten to Atlanta that year anyway. The Gamecocks have come up big against the Gators, so here's another key moment. For some reason, these two SEC teams tend to meet with a lot on the line.
A lot of great historical context there, JC. And I mean, obviously, who can forget 2011? Of course, Scott Wingo, I'm sure, will be able to provide a lot of perspective to the guys this week. And, what happened against Florida then? And that sort of leads me to my next point, of course, just kind of looking ahead to this weekend. South Carolina, Florida in Gainesville. We now know Friday at 6 o'clock, Saturday at 3, Sunday is TBD if necessary. Both those games on ESPN2. And like you mentioned, you look at this series, JC, I think, you look, hey, this is a South Carolina team that swept Florida. So there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. On the other side, it's really hard to beat a team 5 times, which is what you'll have to do in order to go to Omaha. Your just brief thoughts on the weekend. And I guess if you were to give, is there a key to the weekend? Is there anything, excuse me, specifically you're looking for that South Carolina must do this in order to take 2 or 3? Because, of course, down there at their place, going to be a raucous environment. Going to be tough for sure.
Pitching, in my opinion. I think it's South Carolina, with Sanders back, you sort of, it's still a staff where you'd love to have Jersen back and Noah Hall and those guys. But with Sanders back, you have some options, and you have some guys now that Sanders pitched some pretty good innings out of the bullpen this past weekend. You have some guys that are kind of hot right now. Mahoney's a hot pitcher. James Hicks is a hot pitcher. I mean, so that those guys got to hold up, and if it gets to Becker, they're going to have to have some run support for him. I mean, that was the key on Sunday, obviously, getting those 9 runs and all that. So I think strong starting pitching, and then see if they can hit Chris Beach's what is it, a slider curveball thing that he throws. That good luck hitting that thing.
Wicked changeup he throws. Yeah,
yeah, the changeup. Yeah, that's it. The wicked changeup. So I think the pitching's important. I think Florida's arms are good enough to where Carolina's going to have to fight, scratch, claw for runs, kind of just like Texas Tech did. Texas Tech does not have the firepower on offense that South Carolina did coming in, but Florida's pitchers are awfully, awfully good.
Mhm.
And I think that that's going to be the key is you got to match that pitching because, on the road, it can unravel on you pretty quick. Now, they're not going into Baum Stadium. They're not going into Mississippi State, whatever their field's called. They're not playing at Ole Miss. They're not playing at Clemson. Florida has a nice new ballpark, but man, it's June. There's no students on campus. Everybody's at the beach. I mean,
yeah, they're not really known for their baseball atmosphere. They're not.
There's a reason the Devil Rays, who have one of the best teams in the majors, draw 6,000, and the Marlins are even worse. I just don't know that baseball's on everybody's mind down there. They did have a good crowd for the regional, I thought, but it's a lot more of a relaxed atmosphere than than even Vanderbilt or someplace like that, Chris. So, and when the brackets came out, I was kind of like, oh God, they're going to get sent to Arkansas. Well, shoot, I kind of wish they were matched up with that bracket now because Arkansas is not. They're out. So but I think that's something to keep in mind too. It is a road series, but that Florida is a little bit different, and I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying it fundamentally. It's not like Founders Park or some of your other raucous ballparks around the league.
JC, Clemson picks up a commitment from, I think, the number 1 linebacker in the country yesterday, now a 4-star wide receiver today. Georgia picks up a commit from a defensive lineman that South Carolina was, I think, trying to get. So, of course, as you can imagine, JC, Gamecock folks are taking that really well today on social media, right? Especially seeing Clemson in the 24/7 team rankings jump ahead of the Gamecocks in the 10 spot, South Carolina at 11. Do you have any calming words to Gamecock Nation out there, or just any updates on recruiting? That's because I know obviously everybody gets antsy this time of year, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't get antsy. Look, Sammy Brown, he's from, I believe he's from Jefferson, Georgia, right? Okay, so
Georgia fans were really truly the ones freaking out on social media, freaking out.
Well, here's the thing about it. Jefferson it's the speed trap you go through if you're going from Gainesville to Athens. There's another speed trap between Jefferson and Athens that I don't remember its name, but it's a doozy. Jefferson's a doozy. All right, so if you're Sammy Brown, first of all, I think Clemson did a great job recruiting him from day one. They were always up there on his list. If you're Sammy Brown, Athens is almost like it's home, basically. You could live at home and go to University of Georgia, drive in every day. Clemson's far enough because you just go right out there and get on I-85. In about 50 minutes, you're at the exit for Clemson. Just cross Lake Hartwell. Clemson's far enough away to where he's away from home a little bit. I think Georgia's proximity probably worked against him in this situation. You hate to lose a kid from your backyard, but Clemson's kind of been the team for him, or one team. It was always going to come down to Clemson and Georgia since, they started this process with him, and Clemson was winning national championships. Is it thrilling for the Gamecocks that they get another great linebacker? Because you got Trotter. Trotter's out after this year, I think, unless Trotter left. Trotter's back this year.
Yeah.
I mean, is it awesome that they got another great linebacker? No. But the recruiting has fallen off slightly, but not on the defensive front. They're still recruiting at elite level at linebacker and defensive line. So that was I kind of thought maybe Georgia would get him for a while. But then the last couple of weeks, I have been hearing Clemson. Now, as far as Justin Green goes, this is one that probably would sting South Carolina because it was South Carolina by a mile here for a long, long time. Auburn came in, gave him something to think about. So it's Carolina, Auburn. Well, then Georgia just recently upped and offered. And that's just a Georgia kid, 2-time defending national champion. Look at all the guys they put in the NFL. I mean, they have NIL money to burn. I think it's just awfully difficult to maintain a lead, no matter how good you are at recruiting, to recruit against that when they've got that much momentum and that much tangible evidence as to why you should stay at home. I mean, or near home. I mean, he's from I think Gwinnett in Atlanta. And so that one sort of, you're like, Gamecocks really had it. But hey, Georgia thought they had Cliff Matthews back in the day too. They had him penciled in, and Gamecocks ended up keeping him at home. So that's just kind of what happens when you fight these SEC recruiting battles. But there's really no reason to panic right now about anything recruiting wise. It's not like Clemson was never going to sign any more good players under Dabo. I mean, come on. I mean, it's not like Georgia's not going to get good players. I mean, you got to kind of concentrate on what you get. And I think the Gamecocks are still tracking to have a really good recruiting cycle in 2024, maybe one of the best in school history. So,
yeah. Yeah, and on that note, JC, I know there was a visitor weekend this past weekend. I just, again, a recruiting update. What's the latest on? I mean, do you have an idea who you think the next prospect to fall is? I mean, this is the time of year. We're still early in June, obviously, but this is over the next couple of weeks. This is traditionally when, South Carolina's sitting at 9 commitments right now. I mean, do you expect that number to double over the next month? I mean, what do you think the timeline looks like for this class?
Let's see. I have a vacation. I'm going to Gatlinburg to the mountains, July 1st through 6th. So I'm gonna say by the time I get back from vacation, there'll be 15, 16, 17 commits. The way these June visits have kind of worked out recently, and there's just not a lot of history there because this is kind of still a new thing. Most guys make up their mind in June, and then they'll commit like over that week of the 4th, while I'm on vacation. And because they like to do videos and social media posts and all that. So I would, people are always, and I don't understand it these days because in the old days, you'd have January visits, right? And you come out of the January visits every weekend and you pick up 4 or 5 commitments right there on campus. Boom, boom. That just doesn't happen anymore because kids are on their own timeline. They have a little production they have to do for it. Now, it is a little different with Beamer because, Muschamp would not tweet his hashtag Spurs up with the exclamation point. It's kind of hard to make a hashtag with an exclamation point, by the way. But anyway, he would tweet that like right before the kid was going to go public. Like that was kind of his thing. Beamer will tweet it as soon as the kid commits to him. So he just nobody knows the name. So it's kind of fun in a way, but like Xavier McLeod last year was the first welcome home back in February. So go figure. But so I understand that, like, okay, there were no welcome homes. That means there wasn't any silent commits, whatever. You have to keep in mind too, this particular list of visitors this weekend, Chris, I call it a grab bag weekend because there are just a lot of guys that are from kind of far away. I mean, you had Parker Livingstone from Texas, you had Braylon Russell from Arkansas coming in, Jalewis Solomon was from South Georgia. I mean, one of my contacts explained to me it was just like, well, it's kind of 50-50 on all these guys right now because, they're kind of all from a little bit far away here, there, and yonder. And so the response was great from the visit weekend. I think South Carolina is in really good shape with a lot of these guys, but it was a sizable visit weekend, but it's not like in 2 weeks where, okay, all the commits are there. You got Dylan Stewart coming in. You got Jonathan Paylor coming in. You got Daniel Hill coming in. All those guys are like South Carolina's right there. This is more of when I looked at the list, I was like, well, I can get 2 or 3 of these guys, call it a day because there's guys from all over. And as Beamer continues to recruit and spread the footprint, sort of nationally for the first time in the history of this program, you're going to see visit weekends like that where if you can get 3 of 7, that's good because it's 3 good players. You may miss on 4, but hey, there's other guys out there, other fish in the sea, so to speak.
JC, one last thing before I get you out of here, and again, I appreciate you taking the time each and every single Tuesday to join us. I'm curious to get your take on this as someone who, is directly tied to a collective and is in the NIL space and deals with this on a day in, day out basis. But tampering has become sort of a topic of conversation. I feel like it probably will be until we have some sort of structure in place. I know Shane Beamer's had comments on it before. I think most notably, I think back to when he mentioned after the Dukes Mayo Bowl teams were courting the De'Kerryon Joyner to be their starting quarterback. And he obviously didn't turn anybody in or mention names. And I think a couple of days ago, there was something that came out about, and I forget exactly where it was, but he had said something about, he had conversations with guys like Jaheim Bell, Marshawn Lloyd, Jordan Birch. He thought everything was fine. And a couple of days later, they're gone, right? So there's obviously some contact happening. Like, what can happen in college football to eliminate tampering or limit it? Or, I mean, is there really anything that can be done? Because when I think about it, JC, it's like, how are you really going to stop? Like, you literally just have to stop communication. I mean, that's what you have to do. I mean, I thought it was really interesting, and I'm sure you saw this. reading some of Marshawn Lloyd's comments from a Southern Cal website when he was saying that, yeah, after our regular season, I was talking to Caleb Williams and he was talking about come play with us. And you're like, I mean, so like, how does college football get control of that per se?
Yeah, it's kind of, well, I mean, Caleb Williams is Lincoln Riley's best recruiter. He got Jordan Addison the year before too, didn't he? He and his dad, they're all from up there in DC. Like I think one of the better things that could possibly happen for South Carolina would be for Caleb Williams to move on to the NFL, get him out of there, because the Gamecocks are doing well in that area, but that's an issue. I don't think there's anything you can do about it. I think that with Marsh, I mean, it's not even against like the old school NCAA rules. Marshawn Lloyd has a previously existing relationship with Caleb Williams. It's a player at another school. He's talking to his buddy. I mean, he's talking to his dad, whatever. Their conversations are private, and I'll say this: collectives have no business being involved in that. And on my end, they're not. I mean, I don't, I'm not calling guys up going, hey, come to South Carolina and we got a sweet deal for you. I mean, you can't do any of that until after they enroll. And I just, it's not worth my other career and all that good stuff to jeopardize anything. So I'll tell you right now, I'm not doing it. And I don't know of very many collectives across the country that are. It's more like you described, Chris. It's a friend of a friend. It's a high school coach. It's somebody's buddy, and in this world, we're all kind of hyper connected anyway. It's easy.
Mhm.
It's not like it used to be where you got to make a long distance phone call. So you're kind of worried about that dime, or you mail them a letter. I mean, these days it's like, easy, shoot a text, do whatever. And everybody's sort of connected, but it's just, it would take somebody being extraordinarily stupid with tampering and irrefutable proof, because the NCAA will eventually get NCAA does anything right now, they're getting sued. Lawyers are just waiting on it. So the NCAA will have to have an airtight case, and then the program that gets busted for it needs to suffer some very, very serious penalties. And that could back people off for a while, or at least make them careful. But it is interesting that how all this kind of goes down and stuff. But I think it's way more like with like in Marshawn's situation, with somebody he previously knew that's at another school that, hey, want to come play with me? And unfortunately, that happens a lot. It happens with AAU basketball teams. It happens with travel baseball teams, that kind of thing. So we're kind of in that era, but I think that's kind of where it's at. And I'm not sure outside of federal law how you police something like that. I just because you can't keep people from talking to their friends.
That's a fact. And JC, people are always going to find a way to bend the rules or get around things, or especially when it comes to recruiting. I know we are both buddies with Brad Lawing, and he's told me some wild, wild West stories. And basically the bottom line was just all the coaches knew they were all doing whatever, and they just had an agreement: as long as you don't piss in my yard, I won't piss in your yard. So I think we're probably kind of still operating that way, honestly. I
find a way, man. Find a way.
Find a way. That's it. That's it. JC Sherbert, Inside the Gamecocks, the Big Spur. JC, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Looking forward to doing it again next week and jumping on you guys' show on Thursday.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff from JC Sherbert, as always. Guys, hey, we're going to jump into a quick break, but on the other side, we begin our Power Hour. I want to hear from you all, your questions, your comments, your calls, and more upcoming on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. Attention all Gamecock seafood lovers. Are you tired of searching for the freshest seafood in town? Look no further than the Carolina Fish Market, your go-to destination for the finest and most flavorful seafood in the Carolinas and beyond. Introducing the new Carolina Seafood Subscription Box, a culinary delight delivered right to your doorstep. Each month, you'll receive a carefully curated selection of fresh local seafood sourced directly from the waters of the Carolinas and beyond. From succulent shrimp to mouth-watering grouper to flounder or tuna and everything in between, their subscription box brings the ocean's bounty straight to your Gamecock kitchen. What sets the Carolina Fish Market apart is their commitment to quality and sustainability. They work closely with local fishermen and women who use responsible fishing practices, ensuring that every bite you take supports both your taste buds and our precious marine ecosystems. They've even won Best Seafood 5 out of the last 8 years. But that's not all. They're offering free shipping to all TSUS listeners on every Carolina Seafood subscription box, making it even easier for you to indulge in the flavors of the coast. Experience the convenience and joy of having fresh seafood delivered right to your door without any of the hassle. Don't miss on this incredible opportunity to elevate your culinary adventures with the Carolina Fish Market's Carolina Seafood subscription box. Join the seafood enthusiasts across the nation who are savoring the taste of the Carolinas, one delectable bite at a time, and just in time for Father's Day. Visit their website today at carolinafishmarket.com. That's carolinafishmarket.com, and embark on a seafood journey like no other. Freshness, flavor, and convenience await you. Order your Carolina Seafood subscription box now and use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code SPURSUP, SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. The Carolina Fish Market, where taste meets the ocean.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, June the 6th, 2023, as our Power Hour officially begins. We are taking your questions, your comments, your calls as well, 843-790-3377. Again, I want to say thank you to JC Sherbert for taking the time to chat. Really, really good stuff from JC as always. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you. Let's get into some of your questions from earlier into the show. Let's see here. Again, in case you missed it, Austin Gregory said, checking in from Augusta, Georgia today, Robbie Davis over in the line set 5 minutes and 25 seconds. 5 minutes and 25 seconds. I love that. Love that. Very nice. Austin Gregory says minus 550 on the over. Austin Gregory, address Brandon Walker's comments. One of the bigger slapdicks out there, but would still like your take. Austin Gregory, let me follow up your question with a question. What comments specifically are we talking about? Are we talking about him saying that the Gamecocks, explain to me, Austin Gregory, the slapdickery that you are speaking of, because I watched the 1.5-minute long clip that he released on South Carolina, and there were multiple parts to it. So you explain to me exactly what it is that you want me to respond to or give my take on, and I will do so. Let's see. Andrew, the textbook says, wasn't Mitch Jeter a 5-star? I don't know if he was, but he's really, really good. Brad K43 says, interested to see how much of it was the offensive coordinator, talking about Spencer Rattler. We all are. We all are for sure. Madison, what's up? Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. Nathan Moore, I see you as well. Appreciate it. Fuman says, or Fuman, or however you say that, Gamecocks win the Natty in baseball and football this year. From your lips to God's ears. Will Corbett scared that our O-line's such a question mark because that's arguably the most important position group. Indeed. I mean, listen, Will, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, all that, they can't function if the offensive line's not good. So going to need those guys to step up, no doubt. Rumination says, Mo Hardesty couldn't land a fly on a garbage truck. KFC in Africa, great point. RIP to all of our D-Day heroes. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. David Garrick says, Twitty is going to shock the world. Okay, all right. Turbo, or that's Turbo Miller. DJ Twitty, you mean. DJ Twitty. Hayden Yu just says, hold up, let Beamer cook. Indeed. KFC in Africa had a suggestion for the top 5 games to rewatch. Ole Miss at home against Dexter McCluster. Yeah, that was the 09 game. I was actually at that game. Lot of fun. Tons of fun. Let's see. Lynn Turner. My mom passed in 2013. I wore a coat at the Clemson game. My daughter and I took a selfie, and that picture was on my phone screensaver for years. That's awesome. Great memories. Ethan was at the 2012 Georgia game. That was the loudest I've ever heard Willie B when Ace Sanders took it to the house. Lynn Turner on the Bama game. Bart Garcia was magic that day. Everything did against Bama was the right decisions. John Rice has just got here. What's up, my guy, John? Thoughts on Liv and PGA merging? If you haven't said yet. Crazy. Just crazy. Yeah, that's not expected. Great for golf fans that want the best golf in one place. I think, the majors have shown having those guys playing together. I think there's great value, but, I certainly did not expect to see it, John. That's something for sure. I did not expect to see it. Ethan says, nice to have a day without troll comments. Knock on wood. Knock on wood indeed. Octavian says, Shamecock Nation, the Gators are completely baby. No Gators. Completely baby. What does that mean? Okay. Lynn Turner says, I got to put the Thursday night game in 2009 with the birth of Sandstorm up there. We kept the kids out of school on Friday to come to the game, and boy, was it worth it. Yeah, no doubt. That was a great game, Lynn. That was a great game. Jacob B says, Rodgers, best overall, Spurrier, best coach, Shaw, best quarterback, and Clowney, best defensive player. Okay. Ethan, I did make a mistake. Thank you for pointing that out. The Gilmore and Alshon, they were actually before Marcus Lattimore, so I do apologize. I did mess up there. Gilmore's class, yes, started everything. I do apologize, misspeaking there, but Marcus Lattimore, obviously still a game-changing player in the history of South Carolina football. Let's see. Travie, what's up, man? Happy Tuesday. What's going on? Oh, we're repeating some comments here. Let's see. Hayden Yu says, I can't stand Caleb Williams personally. Maybe it's his attitude or something. Austin Gregory, how do we feel about Brad Crawford's apology to the Yardcocks? I didn't see it because I think it's behind a paywall. But I don't know. I mean, I guess Brad feels the need to apologize to Yardcock fans. I don't know. I don't know. Hayden Yu says, Brandon Walker and the rest of the people at Barstool can kiss it, in my opinion. I will say this. I saw the clip. I don't see a follow-up from our guy, Austin Gregory. So I saw the clip from Brandon Walker. I thought the clip, him making the point that we were porous for 10 weeks, great for 2 weeks. And I thought all he was really saying was that Gamecock fans needed to slow their roll and talking about winning 9 or 10 games. I mean, I don't think that's that much of a slapdick take. I mean, I think you're kind of crazy too if you're picking a 10-win season. I do. I mean, I don't know how else to tell you. So, I don't know. I mean, Brandon Walker was openly crapping on South Carolina, so we hate to see that. But, like, a lot of his commentary was like, I mean, whatever. That's his prediction. That's his pick. He might be right. Carolina might win 6 games this year. We don't know. We don't know for certain. Nathan says, how much do you think it affects us going to Gainesville? What would the morale of it be, if any? I just think it'll be a great atmosphere of college baseball, Nathan. I think South Carolina will be excited, ready to go. But obviously the advantage of playing at home is one we felt before, and the Gators will have that. M. Colts is feeling really good about the super matchup with Florida. Everyone's acting like the sweep was a fluke and that Florida's elite, but South Carolina is the Campbell of the SEC. Mim Colt, we are going to beat the shit out of Florida. 5 straight W's. Tyrone says, drain the swamp. Tyrone from Wii Sports. Love the name. Drain the swamp. No, I mean, I think Florida's a very, very good team. I think Florida's a very, very good team. I think it's going to be a great series. I really do. I think it's going to be a great series. Let's see. Dalton says, who's your Omaha 8 after the regionals are officially over? Dalton, I will have to stop and reevaluate and look at who is left and go from there. Maybe we'll do that, Dalton, later in the week. That could be fun. Katie from Rock Hill Texan says, I'm assuming Noah Hall's done. Maybe I missed something, but I feel like there hasn't been an update regarding his injury. Do you think there's a chance we see him if we make it to Omaha? No, Katie, he's done. He's done. Yeah, Noah Hall's done. Mark Kingston actually confirmed it last week that he's out for the year. So, yeah, Noah Hall is finished. And, dude, we knew that. We knew that months ago. We literally knew that months ago that Noah Hall was done, but it finally got announced going into, I think last week is when they finally announced it. But yes, Katie, Noah Hall is finished. So Travis says, don't forget about the silent but deadly Devin Taylor. Yeah. Devin Taylor was a great player at South Carolina. Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, I want to follow up on a comment I made on social media, because this kills me. And we'll go ahead. I'll get to that in a second. Let's go ahead and jump to the phone lines.
Call from
Robbie Davis, Zaxby's Hall of Famer.
Robbie, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired after yesterday, but I'm doing fantastic because I took 17,631 steps yesterday. So I'm a little tired.
That's a lot of steps.
I'm doing okay though. I'll survive. I'm gonna rest today. But anyways, like you've been talking about with the football team, right? With like people saying 9-3 or 10-2 and all that stuff, right? I have come to realize over the short time that Beamer has been here, or any of the coaches for that matter, okay? At the end of the day, the fan base does not have control over what happens in that locker room or on that campus or on the football field to an extent. Okay. Yes, you can show up to a home game and cheer your heart out, but at the end of the day, if the team does not prepare correctly and is not ready for the game that week, that is what loses a football game. Because it's all about how you prepare.
Indeed, it is. Yeah, fans most certainly, Robbie, have no control over the result. As much as we like to think we do, we don't.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, am I going to show up to Willie B for every home game this season and cheer my lungs out? Absolutely,
cheer your keister off.
Yes, I'll cheer my keister off. Okay. But cheering is only going to do so much. They've got to prepare right. They've got to stay healthy. They got to prepare correctly for the offense or defense that they'll be facing. And if they prepare correctly, our chances of winning is either going to skyrocket, or our chances of losing is going to skyrocket. So I'm curious to what kind of mindset they have week in and week out going into the 2023 season. If we lose to North Carolina, do I think we'll lose to North Carolina? No. But if we lose to North Carolina, I'm really curious to see what their mindset is going into the Furman game. Is it going to be like, oh, crap, we better beat the dog mess out of Furman or we're going to look stupid? Or are they going to prepare the same way they would prepare for Georgia for Furman and prove a point that if we lose to NC State, that loss to, or lose to North Carolina, that loss to North Carolina was an absolute fluke and beat the bricks off of Furman? Personally, I would tell the team, if we got a chance to score 90, do it. Prove a point. Prove that the game against the Tar Heels was a fluke, and let's beat the bricks off of Furman and give them their paycheck and tell them to leave.
Yeah, it'll be a big game for just building confidence. Either way, whether you beat UNC or lose to them.
Two things, and then I'm getting off of here. Okay. Mm-hmm. One, I talked to one of my bosses. Okay. If you decide to go to Roebuck, okay, to Zaxby's, let me know. My boss told me he'll hook you up with some food.
Love to hear that. Doing the Lord's work, Robbie.
And I got a joke for you, because my youngest brother's girlfriend told me this joke. You ready for the joke?
I'm ready for the joke.
What do you get if you get kicked in the butt by a dinosaur?
What do you get?
A megasaur ass.
Jeez. Wow.
Oh, goodness. I thought it was pretty funny. I laughed so hard I about fell out the chair whenever she told me the joke.
A megasaur ass.
But, oh, goodness. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get off here. Fix me something to eat. I'm hungry.
Robbie, I appreciate you, my friend. Always a pleasure to hear from you.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Yeah, man. You too. Take care.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff from Robbie Davis, guys. Believe it or not. That last from Robbie Davis. That last from Robbie Davis hits the over. 5 minutes and 26 seconds. Robbie Davis on the over. Wow. 5 minutes and 26 seconds. I literally I could have ended the call early, but I was like, Robbie's not quite done yet. Not quite done yet. River Nation, you were close, though. 5:17. Okay, here we go. Austin Gregory says, the comments I was referring to from Brandon Walker comments is when he says fans are expecting 9 to 10 wins and you're just not there. I truly haven't met a fan who expects us to win 10 games. Austin, that's a very fair point. From the Gamecock fans I see, maybe I'm just surrounding myself with the right people. I don't see a lot of people out there that are picking 9 or 10 wins. I don't, or let's just say 10 wins. I don't see a lot of that. Is there the occasional 9-3? I think the ceiling for this team probably will be 9-3. Again, I'll give my best case, worst case later in the summer, which is actually a month. It's crazy. I'll be making predictions in a month. But anyways, yeah, I've seen nobody picking 10 wins. I have not seen that. And again, we're not in prediction season, but I don't feel like I'm seeing Gamecocks pick that. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe the couple of Gamecocks he's interacted with are acting that way, but I have not seen it. So, to your point, I would agree with you. I think to label that all the Gamecock Nation's expecting that is, is silly, honestly. So, anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. We do have a text here. Jaden here says, out of Hicks, Mahoney, Sanders, who should start game one? Also, who do you see having a great weekend at the plate? And lastly, do you think we get Jersenbeck back for either this weekend or Omaha? No, Jersenbeck is out for the year and probably all of next year, my friend. So you will not see Eli Jersenbeck back on the mound for South Carolina for quite some time. Out of Hicks, Mahoney, Sanders, who should get the game one start? I'd probably go Jack Mahoney game one. Jack Mahoney game one, Will Sanders game two. My only concern with Will Sanders is he physically ready? Is he physically ready to go through 100 pitches? That's my question about Will Sanders. Let's see. How about John Edward going to look at an apartment after work? John Edward, have fun with that, my guy. Sounds like a blast. Robbie busting out the dad jokes for sure. Dale from East Tennessee. You must be talking about old Smokey with 10 wins, Chris. And Dale from East Tennessee. Am I seeing this correctly? Yes. Your profile picture on YouTube is a picture of the Shoney's sign. So, right on brand for BDD. Right on brand for Dale. That is right on brand for Dale. Guys, I would say this, by the way, on the the recruiting stuff that's happening recently. You look at here, we'll pull it up right here. Let's pull up the On3 recruiting. Let me ask you this: which do y'all prefer? Which do y'all prefer? Do y'all prefer On3? Do you prefer 24/7? Do you prefer Rivals? Which do you prefer? In the latest team ranking, South Carolina on On3 Sports is 6th. Clemson sits at 8th. Of course, Georgia at number 1. They also lead the country with 17 commits. Them and Michigan both. Notre Dame's got 19 also. Gamecocks have just 9. So the new spring money hits different. I would just say this, guys. There's nothing to worry about. I think there's nothing to worry about. It's still, I would say, early in the process. I mean, this is the month we all know: January, February, March, April, May, Beamer Ball. I mean, this is generally the month where things click for South Carolina. This is when they land a lot of their prospects, and a lot of other schools do as well, right? This is the time of year to recruit because most guys, they want to get it out of the way because when we get into July, right, high schools start practicing and the football season is just around the corner. And so I'm not concerned. I mean, I think JC made a great point, guys. Like if you really thought Clemson was going to stop getting good players, or if you think Georgia's going to stop getting good players, I don't know how to tell you this, but they're not. You know what I mean? They're not. They're not going to stop getting good players. They're going to get good players. They're going to continue to get good football players. South Carolina has just got to find a way to get more of said good football players. That's it. And if you trust Shane Beamer and what he's done in recruiting, and I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you trust him, it's no big deal. It's no issue. You know that Shane Beamer is going to get what South Carolina needs to be successful. I mean, that's it. So why would you fret? Why would you stress? Why would you – I understand you want to not see anything good happen to your rival, but, I mean, it's inevitable. They're going to recruit well, man. They're going to recruit well. Austin Gregory says, all right, here we go. Let's go through some of these. Some of you guys have some takes on, and yes, Jaden Brown, Jersenbeck is getting Tommy John. Dale says 3 stars on Yelp for that Shoney's. Indeed. Brewer Nation, what was I going to say before Robbie called? I don't remember, Brewer Nation. Somebody go back and I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say, Brewer Nation. That's good. It'll come back to me. Austin Gregory says on 3 for recruiting predictions, 247 or 24/7 for evaluations. Hayden Yu says he looks at 24/7 Sports. Nathan Moore says 24/7 by far. Always seem more informal or informational, reliable insights coming in there all around better. Austin Gregory, after the Harbor situation, I have a newfound respect for the on-3 recruiting prediction machine. They nailed it hour by hour leading up to the announcement. They were spot on. Brewer Nation, something about a comment. I don't know, Brewer Nation. I don't know. Go back through. I don't know. I have no idea, Brewer Nation. It was about the responding to a social media post. Yeah, I was just going to mention just the thing I saw on social media about the NCAA football video game, and guys apparently are they're asking prices are too much for the video game, and they might not be in the game, and just how silly that is. And somebody comments on Twitter, makes a great point. Like, dude, just take the money that you can get, because if you don't, like, literally somebody's just going to make the roster and put you in the game, and you're going to get 0. So I don't know, man. Like, I don't see the benefit in holding out for some humongous paycheck to be in a video game. Like, Austin Gregory says Lamont's been cooking lately. When does Lamont not cook, Austin? Lamont stays cooking. He stays cooking. Dale from East Tennessee says probably something about you still ain't following me on Twitter. Maybe we'll fix that, Dale. One day. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, I want to continue to hear from you. More of your questions, comments, calls, and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. Attention all Gamecocks seafood lovers. Are you tired of searching for the freshest seafood in town? Look no further than the Carolina Fish Market, your go-to destination for the finest and most flavorful seafood in the Carolinas and beyond. Introducing the new Carolina Seafood Subscription Box, a culinary delight delivered right to your doorstep. Each month, you'll receive a carefully curated selection of fresh local seafood sourced directly from the waters of the Carolinas and beyond. From succulent shrimp to mouth-watering grouper to flounder or tuna and everything in between, their subscription box brings the ocean's bounty straight to your Gamecock kitchen. What sets the Carolina Fish Market apart is their commitment to quality and sustainability. They work closely with local fishermen and women who use responsible fishing practices, ensuring that every bite you take supports both your taste buds and our precious marine ecosystems. They've even won Best Seafood 5 out of the last 8 years. But that's not all. They're offering free shipping to all TSUS listeners on every Carolina Seafood subscription box, making it even easier for you to indulge in the flavors of the coast. Experience the convenience and joy of having fresh seafood delivered right to your door without any of the hassle. Don't miss on this incredible opportunity to elevate your culinary adventures with the Carolina Fish Market's Carolina Seafood Subscription Box. Join the seafood enthusiasts across the nation who are savoring the taste of the Carolinas, one delectable bite at a time, and just in time for Father's Day. Visit their website today at carolinafishmarket.com. That's carolinafishmarket.com, and embark on a seafood journey like no other. Freshness, flavor, and convenience await you. Order your Carolina Seafood Subscription Box now and use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code SPURSUP, SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. The Carolina Fish Market, where taste meets the ocean.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Tuesday, June the 6th, 2023. Continuing along, taking your questions, comments, calls. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. We go to the Big Cock Club Discord, the TDC Question Channel. Dalton says, do you think the potential rematch factor with Florida will work against us this weekend? It's really hard to beat a team 5 times in a row. You make a great point. It is. It is hard to beat a team 5 times in a row for sure, and these teams are different than the last time they played each other. Also, the series is going to be in Gainesville instead of South Carolina, so I don't know if it works against us. I mean, here's the thing. What happened back early in the season just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I think you take some of the things that maybe worked from that series, like the scouting reports, attacking certain hitters, whatever, but Florida's going to go back into the same thing. They're going to reevaluate what they did in that series sweep, and they're going to do everything they can to make sure it doesn't happen again. So it's a storyline for sure, but I don't think you can say just because, Carolina swept them, they're going to do it again. I don't think you can just say that. You know what I mean? So And I also don't think it's like a disadvantage, right? I mean, could Carolina win 5 games against Florida this year? Yes, they could. It's tough. It's hard to beat a team 5 times in a season, but it can be done, I think. It can be done. The Gamecocks have got the guys to do it. Austin Gregory with a great question. Which single player is the most important to keep healthy due to depth concerns this upcoming season? In other words, which player going down with an injury would be the most detrimental to our team? Guys, I think you have to go with Spencer Rattler. I understand everybody likes Lenora Sellers, but dude, you lose Spencer Rattler. I mean, dude, think about it. We talked about this back before Rattler and Wells announced they were coming back. That without those guys, South Carolina was a fringe bowl team, and they would be viewed as such. I mean, with those guys, you're viewed as an 8-win team, 7-win team, 8-win team. I mean, so yeah, Spencer Rattler goes down with an injury. I think that would be by far the most detrimental thing that could happen to this season. I'm not saying Luke Doty couldn't steady the ship somewhat, but as far as reaching that goal of 8 wins, God forbid 9, that you could pretty much forget that. The goal would shift to, hey, let's just get to 6 and make a bowl game. So, I mean, because even if you lost Juice Wells, man, like you could get creative, I think, on the outside. You could get creative offensively, but if you've got a quarterback, Austin, you have a chance. And if you don't have that guy, you're going to get exposed. And I don't think Lenora Sellers is ready. And Luke Doty hasn't really shown much of anything that he is, that he would be certainly not going to be an upgrade. So, yeah, I'll go with an injury to Spencer Rattler would be by far the most detrimental. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Tuesday, June the 6th. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Let's see. Wow. Southern Cal set to take on Georgia Southern in 2025. Georgia Southern going to go out to Southern Cal to take on the Trojans. Let's see. Brewer Nation, if that happens, who do you prefer to see in the center? Well, Brewer Nation, do you want my cop-out answer? Because I'll say whoever wins the job. Brewer Nation, in the hypothetical scenario that you've presented, if someone other than Spencer Rattler had to play quarterback the rest of the season, believe it or not, I would not. I don't think Brewer Nation it's as simple as thrust Lenora Sellers out there. I think the worst thing you could do is rush the kid out there before he's ready to go. I just, the early stages in a quarterback's career, I mean, you hear NFL guys talk about this all the time. It's so important because you can just completely shatter a young guy's confidence. You can shatter a dude's confidence if you throw him out there too early before he's ready and he struggles, right? You can completely shatter his confidence. So I'd probably still go with Luke Doty. I think Luke Doty, yeah. I think Luke Doty would be the guy. That's who I would go with. That's who I would go with. Let's see. Austin Gregory, despite having other injuries, do you think Noah Hall or having Noah Hall in the lineup would have changed the outcome of a few games down the stretch? I mean, Austin, I think it'd be unfair to say it wouldn't. I mean, Noah Hall's a fantastic pitcher, man. Noah Hall's a fantastic pitcher. I think if you'd have had him, you certainly would have won a couple more games. No doubt. No doubt. So, got to be fair to Noah Hall and his talent and what he does for you, for sure. Let's see. Ruination says, I agree, but knowing what we know about Doty, it's tough. Well, I mean, listen, we saw him in a spring game. He struggled in a spring game, but Ruination, I'd rather watch Luke Doty struggle than throw Lenoris Sellers to the Wolves. I really would. Like, if you care about the development of Lenoris Sellers and his career at Carolina, I mean, I would not do that. I would not do that. Let's see. Austin Gregory, how do you feel about the SEC moving to a single standings model? I want your perspective through the Garnet glasses, not as a college football fan. I mean, the Garnet glasses, hate it. Hate it. I mean, I think it's bad for South Carolina, Austin. I think it makes it, I think it guarantees, like I'd go on record right now and tell you that South Carolina will never win an SEC championship. I mean, I'll go on record right now and make that prediction. Like, if I had to pick one way or the other, I think Shane Beamer can do the unthinkable and prove us all wrong. But like, if you put a gun to my head and said, you got to pick one, your life depends on it, what would you bet on? I'm betting South Carolina never wins the SEC. Flat out. I mean, just getting to the championship game is going to be really tough. Ray Kelly is the winner of the South Carolina Florida game, the most likely College World Series finalist from that side of the bracket. Ray, I could see it. I mean, I don't know exactly who they're matched up with, who they'll play. We'll have to take a look, but I could definitely see it. Could definitely see it. So, my guy Eric Reese says, can confirm the Yardcocks merch went undefeated this weekend. Love it. Love to see that, man. I appreciate you rocking. Appreciate you repping, man. That's what's up. Jaden Brown says, I think you should give Tanner Bailey a shot before Lenoris Sellers. He's got a year under his belt. Well, admittedly, Jaden Brown, our guy Bruin Nation, is a little biased. He's a little biased. Hayden U, Virginia versus Duke. That's who our Super Regionals paired with. Okay. Could be a South Carolina Virginia rematch in the College World Series. How about that? That'd be fun. How many of y'all will make the trip to Omaha if the Gamecocks make it? How many will make the trip? How about this? A new spring league for 4-star and 5-star high school players will start in 12 cities around the country next spring. The Prep Super League. The Prep Super League. How about that? Isn't that crazy? High school football. Let's see. Austin. I love these questions. Austin Gregory said, would you rather win the SEC in football next year or win the College World Series in baseball? Austin, I'm going to go the SEC championship in football because we've won the College World Series before. We've never won the SEC in football. So Give me the thing that we have never done before, Austin Gregory. I mean, Austin, again, you know as well as I do. You know as well as I do. Like, those questions are almost pointless, right? It's kind of like when the calendar turned from 2019, or no, was it when the calendar turned from 2020 to 2021? And I ran the poll, what is the greatest Gamecocks achievement over the last decade? And we're about to have for some of you, we might be about to have somewhat of an uncomfortable conversation, but this is just calling it what it is. I said, what was the greatest Gamecocks achievement over the course of the last decade? Right? From 2010 to 2019. I think I included 2020 in that because I messed something up. Whatever. Either way, over the last decade, I said the 2010 SEC East Championship in football, back-to-back national championships in baseball, the 2017 Final Four run in basketball, or other. Not even really thinking. I put other. And people tried to just grill me. People grilled me on social media for not including women's basketball specifically. But the reason I put other guys is because for some people, that wouldn't be like in their top 4 of greatest achievements in the decade. Right? Like the women's national championship, women's basketball national championship. Like if you had to do a ranking, some would list 5 or 6 football games, individual games before that. It's all about preference. There's really no right or wrong answers there. I say all that to say back to the point that Austin, I mean, I love baseball. I'm a baseball guy. I'd love to see South Carolina win the College World Series, but like nobody is going to, fans of every school, not just South Carolina, would trade all of their athletic success in every other sport to win at the highest level in football. Every fan base would. And if you say you wouldn't, you're lying. If you say you wouldn't, you're lying. Flat out, bottom line. People would give up the women's basketball stuff. They'd give up the men's, little bit of men's basketball. They'd give up the baseball even. And the good news is, guys, this is all hypothetical. We don't have to do any of that. We can just win at everything. We can have good teams across the board, right? I mean, I'd like to see, I want South Carolina to have a well-rounded athletic department, right? We were asked about this the other day about, would you rather be like a Tennessee or an Arkansas who's kind of good at everything, or like a Georgia who's just elite at football and everything else is kind of whatever? And from the fan side, I would actually prefer to see South Carolina be good at everything because it's fun to follow all the sports and talk sports and do all that year round. It's fun to do that. But from the business side too, like, dude, there's nothing better than football being good. When football's good, everything's good. Life is good. When football's good, life is good. And when football's not good, guess what? Life ain't as good anymore. Life's not as good anymore. Dalton says, after this weekend, I'm wondering if you think this is the start of a good postseason stretch for Kingston's tenure here, or do you believe that this was kind of a one-off where we had the right players at the right time? Dalton, I don't think that's something you can really determine, man, because the roster's changed so much. I will say that we've got a good core, good nucleus coming back next year. I expect we'll add more guys in the portal. And, I mean, we should have Dalton a good team. We should have Dalton a good team next year. We should. So that's kind of one of those things, Dalton, where it's so hard to predict because you think about who we came into this year with, all the guys in the transfer portal. I mean, we looked completely different than 2021. So I think it could be the start of something good. I think it could be the start of something good. Yeah. See, Jacob E., part of me hates these questions being asked because it's like, it sounds so bad to say. But and again, the good news is these are all just like hypotheticals, dude. They're all hypotheticals, and we're not trading wins or trading a team. We're not sacrificing a team for a win. But Jacob E. says this: would you trade the women's basketball titles for double-digit win season in football? Yes. Yes. Of course I would. Are you kidding me? Of course. Yes. Nothing moves the needle like football. Nothing. And guys, there's ways to measure that too. There's ways to quantify that. You could look at things like, social media, at least from my perspective, there's ways to quantify that. And when it comes to like the way things move the needle, nothing, like that 2-week stretch of Tennessee Clemson, that has moved the needle unlike anything I've ever seen since I started doing TSUS. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Dalton.
Dalton, what's up, man? How are you? Dalton, what's up? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yo.
You can hear me?
Yeah, now
You
I
good?
can hear you. Now I can hear you. You were choppy for a second there.
Okay. I just wanted to call in and sort of give my opinion or add to the conversation we're having about, trading wins, having a well-rounded athletics department, all that kind of stuff. Because, you can say it's hypothetical, but we saw an example of this. Georgia fired their baseball coach, obviously because they had a bad season. They're one of the worst teams in SEC baseball. And then, they wouldn't fund that program, right?
Right.
They went out of their way essentially to hire an assistant coach from LSU, which, the LSU pitching coach, he seems to be an up-and-coming type of, coach in the industry. And, it could work out well for Georgia. But essentially, what they're doing is they are limiting their resources within their athletics program explicitly just to focus on funding football and making sure they have enough money for recruiting, making sure they have enough money to upgrade their facilities just for that one program. And my question to you is, let's say South Carolina had the same kind of donor base that Georgia does. I know we don't, but let's just hypothetically pretend we did. Would you be okay with the donors basically saying, we don't want to fund any other program when, let's say if Dawn Staley's contract expired and we said, we're not willing to pay you X amount of money. Or let's say, we went on a run in baseball and Kingston wanted a raise to be equivalent to some of the higher paid coaches in the SEC and nationally. And we said, no, we don't have the money to do that. We're all in on football right now. Would you support that?
I hate the thought of sacrificing the well-being of the other sports just solely for football. I don't know, man. Here's the thing. I'll tell you this. Would I support that? Would I support South Carolina cutting funding for the smaller sports, we'll just say, for football? The fan side of me would say, no, I don't support that. The business side of me would say I understand it, especially when it comes to, Mark Kingston, I will say, he's already one of the lower paid SEC baseball coaches. But when it comes to paying certain coaches in non-revenue sports, listen, Dawn Staley, for example, women's basketball is not a revenue sport. If they were to cut back on her salary to put towards football, I don't even know what that would look like, where that money would go. I'm not saying I'm advocating for it. I'm not doing that. But I would understand it from the business side. I'd get it. Okay, you're already losing money on this sport, and then you're paying an incredible salary that could be allocated elsewhere. So, and if you're strapped, you're on a budget, I would get the business move of doing that. The fan part of me would not like that. Feels kind of icky. That feels kind of icky, especially since you have made an investment in women's basketball. So, like, to backtrack now would be kind of a strange move, but I would understand the move. I would get it from the business sense.
Well, at the end of the day, for me, I think what Georgia is doing is bad. I personally don't want South Carolina to do that, and I don't believe that they are doing it. But I mean, while an athletics department is a business in some sense, they're not a for-profit business. The athletics department at major SEC universities are non-profit, entities essentially. So all the money they make off of all of their sports that people go to see, baseball, football, women's basketball, men's basketball, all of that money has to go back into the payroll, into the facilities, into everything that you need to run the program. So at the end of the day, it's not about making money for the shareholders as let's say the New York Yankees would do, or the Los Angeles Dodgers, because those are professional teams whose main motive is the profit motive. The profit motive really isn't there. And at the same time, I mean, women's basketball, while it may not generate the same amount of revenue as football, for example, or even basketball, the amount of attention, the amount of good PR that Dawn Staley and her team has brought the University of South Carolina on the national level, I think kind of justifies the salary, if you're the athletics department. Right. So that's sure. Kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
And, I would agree with you that I would much rather have a more well-rounded athletics department where all the programs are at least competitive and there's a chance to, win national titles and in pretty much everything, than to just go all in on football and say, we just want to be good at football. We want to sell out. We're putting all our resources into this, and facilities in our other sports like baseball, basketball are uncompetitive as far as from a recruiting standpoint and a coaching standpoint. We're okay with that as long as we're winning national titles in football. I just don't like that mentality. It seems to be working for Georgia. I don't think most Georgia fans really care that like all their other programs suck except for their football program. But I personally don't think that that's the way to go about it, because from the standpoint of where we are, we're not a big money school with like a gigantic donor base. I mean, we have money, don't get me wrong, but we don't have money like LSU has money, like Texas has money, like Georgia has money. I mean, so the programs that are quote unquote non-revenue programs where we have a chance to, win national titles in those programs way more than we have a chance at winning a football national title. I think, putting a little bit more of the revenue into those programs is a good thing. So, I mean, I just wanted to call and sort of, put my 2 cents in, because, you can say this is a hypothetical and yeah, I mean, trading wins on the field is a hypothetical, but at the end of the day, I mean, money makes the world go round, and everybody, no matter how much money you have, whether you're LSU, whether you're Georgia, whether you're Alabama, you only have a limited amount of it, and you've got to, designate it to the things that, you feel are the most important.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I agree with you, Dalton. And I know we both agree too. I'd like to see a well-rounded athletics department as well, because football is not the only sport, and we love baseball and we do love basketball, both men's and women's. And so we want to see Gamecocks athletics be successful, successful across the board. So, no, I definitely agree.
Yeah, I mean, the men's basketball program, I hate to say it, I think is kind of a lost cause at this point. I mean, Obviously I'm a believer in the homie Lamont, but I don't think you're ever gonna really see like in sustained success within the men's basketball program unless you literally just put all your resources in NIL towards it, just because it really doesn't have any tradition. It's been seen as a basement bottom dweller type of job within the basketball coaching industry for so long. It's going to take probably a decade or more of sustained tournament appearances and success in order to get there. But I mean, our baseball program has a lot of tradition. Obviously our football program doesn't, but fans still go to every game. It's still got a lot of support. So the men's basketball program is kind of is what it is. Obviously I hope the homie Lamont can get us somewhat to where we want to go, but my expectations are a lot lower for that. But to your point, having a well-rounded athletics department, I think is incredibly important. And it doesn't seem that Georgia feels that way, as they're literally just hiring assistants because they don't want to pay money to get a real coach.
Right. Indeed. Dalton, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for the call. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Great stuff from Dalton. And again, great perspective from him as well in the conversation. Guys, we are going to jump into one final break. On the other side, we'll close out the show in style with more of your questions, comments, calls, and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. Attention all Gamecocks seafood lovers. Are you tired of searching for the freshest seafood in town? Look no further than the Carolina Fish Market, your go-to destination for the finest and most flavorful seafood in the Carolinas and beyond. Introducing the new Carolina Seafood Subscription Box, a culinary delight delivered right to your doorstep. Each month, you'll receive a carefully curated selection of fresh local seafood sourced directly from the waters of the Carolinas and beyond. From succulent shrimp to mouth-watering grouper to flounder or tuna and everything in between, their subscription box brings the ocean's bounty straight to your Gamecock kitchen. What sets the Carolina Fish Market apart is their commitment to quality and sustainability. They work closely with local fishermen and women who use responsible fishing practices, ensuring that every bite you take supports both your taste buds and our precious marine ecosystems. They've even won Best Seafood 5 out of the last 8 years. But that's not all. They're offering free shipping to all TSUS listeners on every Carolina Seafood subscription box, making it even easier for you to indulge in the flavors of the coast. Experience the convenience and joy of having fresh seafood delivered right to your door without any of the hassle. Don't miss on this incredible opportunity to elevate your culinary adventures with the Carolina Fish Market's Carolina Seafood Subscription Box. Join the seafood enthusiasts across the nation who are savoring the taste of the Carolinas, one delectable bite at a time, and just in time for Father's Day. Visit their website today at carolinafishmarket.com. That's carolinafishmarket.com, and embark on a seafood journey like no other. Freshness, flavor, and convenience await you. Order your Carolina Seafood Subscription Box now and use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code SPURSUP, SPURSUP, for $10 off your first purchase. The Carolina Fish Market, where taste meets the ocean.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back. Final 7 minutes or so here on the Daily Crow, taking your questions, comments, calls. 843-790-3377. How about this question here from Austin Gregory? Power rank the following: Panic Ritter, Brendan M., Robbie Davis, Dale from East Tennessee, Bruin Nation, John Edward, Austin Gregory, and Rebecca. Austin, I could never power rank those folks you have mentioned, my friend. I refuse. That is a trap, and you know it. That is a trap. I will say what would be really funny, though, is like the caller commenter bracket like Feinbaum does for his show. That would be really funny. That would be really, really funny. Let's see. Austin Gregory mentioned this: SEC Mike's 2024 schedule for South Carolina: Georgia, Texas, Texas A&M, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mizzou, and Mississippi State. How about a date with Texas? I'd love to see that. I hope that does actually happen. I would love to see it. Love to see it. Let's see. Jacob E. says, remember, it's not just the athletic department, it's the entire school. Imagine how many students, not just recruits, want to go to Georgia because they are winning in football. It elevates the school as a whole. That is a good point. It does. It does elevate the school as a whole, Jacob. You are correct. M. Colt says the only problem is the football team generates a vast majority of the money for the universities. Is it fair to the football players to pool their money to the other teams? Honest question. Lynn Turner then says, it's not the football players' money. She says without the rest of the school, there would be no football team. So there is a symbiotic relationship. Lynn Turner says, I wouldn't be in a Twitter bracket, so you'd be missing a super fan. Maybe one day we'll do a bracket. That would be, I love all the folks that tune in, man. I love all the folks that tune in. Hey guys, Bet Online has dropped updated College World Series odds to win the College World Series. South Carolina is 12-1. 12-1. Wake Forest is at 3-1. LSU 5-1. Florida 6-1. So they're obviously expecting South Carolina to lose to Florida. Virginia 8-1. Again, Carolina 12-1. Tennessee is also 12-1. Stanford 14-1. TCU 16-1. Texas 16-1. Kentucky is 28-1. Oregon 28-1. Southern Miss 30-1. Duke 33-1. Bama 40-1. Indiana State 40-1. Why is Florida State on that list? They must have messed up. It says Florida State 50-1. Oral Roberts also 50-1. I think they messed up putting Florida State on there. But the Gamecocks, most importantly, 12-1. 12-1. Guys, again, just echoing what Dalton was saying and going back on that conversation, it's the dead of the offseason, so we talk about, would you trade this for this many wins in football and this to this and whatever? Guys, I want to see all sports at South kind of win. It's fun doing this, and I'm able to do – like, the reason TSUS succeeds because we don't just talk football. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're really limiting yourself when all you talk about is football. Like, the fact that we're able to talk about a great baseball program and then a great women's basketball program and a men's basketball program that we hope is on the rise. Like, it keeps us going all year long. You know what I mean? So, no, I wouldn't just want to be one-dimensional. I wouldn't just – and here's the thing, too. Like, and I've even told y'all, I'm not the biggest basketball person in the world. I love the Gamecocks, so I watch. And, I'm coming around on basketball. I like basketball more. I like basketball more than I used to, but it's not my favorite. I'm more of a baseball guy, right? I'm more of a baseball guy, but I wasn't when I started the business. I wasn't just going to talk about football and baseball and just leave basketball out in the cold. So I like being well-rounded, man. I believe in it. I think it's also good to just talk other sports and kind of, I think there's you grow as a content creator having to step outside of your comfort zone and talk about some other sports and talk about some different things and make predictions for those sports and just give opinions on it. So I love talking about it all. So I want all the programs to be good. I mean, obviously, though, guys, we know the impact of what a national championship football team would bring to us all. But thankfully, we don't have to sacrifice any sports out there to make that happen. That's the good news. That's the good news. This is all just hypothetical, dead of the offseason type banter. And, guys, I'm excited to go through the quote-unquote off-season with you all. Granted, we're not quite there yet because we've got the Yardcocks this weekend, but it is approaching. It is approaching. The month of July is inevitable. The month of July is indeed inevitable. So, but the good news is we'll have content bleeding out the eyeballs all month long, as we will this week as well. Guys, that's going to do it. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much again, guys. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon on YouTube so you get notifications of when the show goes live and also when we drop new video content. Also, go over to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts and hit that subscribe button. And be sure to rate the show as well, guys. Let us know what you like, don't like. Show love and show support. It helps boost the podcast as well, so we can check that out. And of course, the podcast, it drops every single day, 5 p.m. Eastern, and Mondays at 5 a.m. Eastern after the Rowdy Rooster Rundown on Sunday nights. Guys, that being said, hey, thank you all so much. Appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We will talk to you all tomorrow.